Please note, for maximum picture quality, it may be necessary to adjust the tracking control on your VCR.
This week we got nunchucks in hand and we're on a revenge tour, taking out evil creeps lamppost to lamppost to kill an evil mob boss. We're topless in our kick-ass vest in this week's podcast, Adjust Your Tracking, where we're going on an adventure to watch a century of cinema decade by decade, year by year. I am half of your host, Liam Delaney, and he is...
Oliver Jones.
And welcome to the show. And we've also got a guest with us this week. Welcome to the show, Brandon.
That's
me.
me.
How you doing?
I'm fine.
Just fine.
Just fine.
Just fine. Currently,
I'm sweating. That's what I'm doing. I'm the hottest man in the world.
Yeah, I think we all are.
I'm definitely sweating hardcore.
Ugh. How have you found the last 3 months then, Brandon?
Pretty fun. Why? Did something happen?
Well, let me tell you, something did happen. Michael Keaton is playing Batman again. That's what's happening.
Oh, God.
What do you think? He's not playing Batman again, though, is he? He's just going to be like Bruce Wayne.
Well, I've read various reports either say
Guys,
he's playing Bruce
stop?
Wayne again or Batman again.
Please stop.
I mean, I told you he was going to do this.
just don't.
But the thing is, though, what do you think of it, Liam? What do you think?
I think it's fun. I don't really care. It's whatever.
Yeah, I'm pretty much the same, to be honest.
Ollie, don't lie. You absolutely are losing your mind.
I'm not, to be honest.
I don't believe
I'm at
you.
the stage in life now where I'm very happy with 3 of the Batman films we've got, and I like the early ones as well. And I'm whatever we have now. If it's good, it's good. If it's crap, it's crap. I don't care, to be honest.
Oh, I feel like I've radicalized you against these films finally.
Well, if they're not making Batman films, he's just going to pop in the after credits scene, isn't he? And be like, "Hi, I'm Batman. Welcome to the Justice League," or something.
This ties in really nicely with your episode today, gents.
Does it?
Because Ollie should know that Bruce Lee was on a few episodes of Batman.
Oh, well, that's where I was going to say.
Okay,
We'll get into it later on, but that was my introduction to Bruce Lee, is watching the Batman TV show where he cameos as Kato in
That
3
can't be
episodes.
It is.
Yeah.
It's absolutely true, but I
No,
don't
it can't be
think
true
I've
that
ever...
was Ollie's introduction to
It was.
Bruce Lee.
That was.
Oh, that's absolutely.
Yeah,
of course
like
it was.
In the 80s or 90s, watching those shows, that was when I first saw Bruce Lee. I mean, I didn't know who he was at that time, but...
It was probably mine too, without knowing.
Oh, I don't know what mine was. I honestly think it was probably just culturally Bruce Lee being in everything. Like cartoons and whatever, like Animaniacs or whatever. Bruce Lee was just always a character in shit.
That's
really.
true, yeah. His poster was all over the place, wasn't it?
Yeah.
I remember watching the the film Dragon. I watched that a lot as a kid.
Oh yeah, I did too actually.
And there was a video game of it as well. I
really?
quite enjoy that film. It's cheesy as fuck, but it is fun.
I honestly barely remember it except for a couple of details.
No real memory of it at all.
They just kind of make his life like a kung fu film, don't they?
Yeah.
Like he's like a dishwasher, and all of a sudden he's fighting everybody who he works with and stuff like that.
Aren't we all?
Aren't we all?
Just a normal day.
There's always so many issues when you're a dishwasher for a restaurant. There's always so many mobs. And
I got to tell you, I've worked in a restaurant, and I definitely wanted to punch people all the time. So me and Bruce Lee have that in common.
What did you do there? Were you like a busboy?
I was a busboy in New York City in an Italian French, whatever it was. I don't know. It was a million years ago, guys.
it's a busboy cleaning tables.
Yeah, you bring the food out and you give people their water and stuff, and
pretty much what Pete Davidson was doing in King of Staten Island.
I was just thinking I watched a film with a busboy in it, and I was trying to think what it was.
There was one thing I got to mention last week. One of my favourite moments in that film was when they have to beat each other up for their tips, and they've got the Hulk gloves.
The Fight Club, yeah.
I tell you what, Brandon laughed at me for watching that. He's like, "What the fuck did you watch that for?" And I thought it was quite good. So
yeah, I really liked King of Staten Island.
We all look down on Staten Island. I won't watch anything called Staten Island, just because.
So explain to us then about Staten Island. Then why is it like looked down upon, or what's the?
It's a literal dumping ground south of Manhattan. That's only good because there's a ferry you can get on to go there. That's a nice ride, but then you don't set foot on it. You just go back.
Just take the ferry back again.
Yeah.
So yeah, we should clarify. Brandon's talking to us from New Jersey right now.
I'm not. Thankfully, I'm not sure.
Yeah, I don't know if you're in the right place or right.
I don't know how I feel about that today, currently, because at least I'd be closer to the ocean in the heat, which would be nice.
That would be nice.
Well, you're in the heat now.
That's what I mean. But like, it could be this hot, but I'd be close to the ocean, so it's okay.
True. Yeah.
Whereas here,
Here it was just a concrete thing that's melting me.
It just sucks. Yeah.
We should introduce Brandon a little bit, saying like,
No, we shouldn't.
known him a long time. He's a filmmaker, can we bill you as martial arts expert for this?
I think that's probably a mistake and an overstatement, if I'm honest. Definitely a fan of the genre, for sure.
That's good.
But you have made your own martial art film.
I did make a martial arts short film, which was loads of fun.
Yeah.
Check it out, Streets of Myth.
I
don't know if you've still got the website or whatever, but
I don't know actually.
I'll laugh if you're still paying for it.
Let's find out.
To be honest, it's very easy to keep just paying for websites.
Yeah, it is. I might be. If not, you can. I'm probably not actually. If not, you can find it on YouTube and whatnot.
Yeah.
Oh no, it's definitely still online. Look at that! I completely forgot.
There you go.
Why don't you tell us a little bit about Streets of Myth then? Give us the elevator pitch.
Oh God. Okay. I wanted it to be like an old school wuxia film, which is not what Bruce Lee was doing at all.
Yeah.
Set in a modern urban environment. So initially I wanted to do it in New York City, which is where I was living at the time when I came up with the idea. And then I moved to Birmingham and figured might as well do it at some point in my life, and did a little proof of concept kind of short film that was sort of in that style. So less realistic martial arts, I guess, on purpose. More highly stylized, more melodramatic, action wise, kind of classical filmmaking where you bring the camera back and put it on a tripod and just watch kind of the weapons fly kind of thing, which is more reminiscent of King Hu, who made films around the same time as this, rather than the Bruce Lee movies. But if it wasn't for Bruce Lee, I probably never would have gotten into the genre in the first place. So
Totally.
Yeah.
Like him and Jackie Chan are definitely like your entry points, aren't they?
For me, it was actually Jackie Chan 100%. But maybe we'll get to this as we go. The more I think about it, the more like Jackie Chan probably doesn't happen if not for Bruce Lee. And yeah, so there's this whole like domino effect after the popularity of this and the other 4 films he's in, Bruce Lee, which includes Jackie Chan becoming a huge star, and then includes him doing those sort of like crossover semi-English language movies in the 90s.
Yep.
That was people. I'm 39, so people around my age, largely that's our introduction to Hong Kong.
Yeah.
And
Definitely.
so, personally, quick aside, I remember very specifically like watching TV, and for some reason, I think it was MTV, showed a pretty large portion of the ladder fight from First Strike, Jackie Chan's First Strike.
Yeah.
And I remember the moment very vividly because I felt like my brain was leaking out of my ears. Like I just couldn't believe what I was seeing.
Yeah.
And from that moment, just wanted to like know everything, see all of them, know what was going on. What is this all about? And went on a Jackie Chan rampage for the next few years. And that then obviously led back to Bruce Lee and the rest of the various lovely jewels of that genre and industry.
It's amazing how you can go down those rabbit holes. Like you just hear like a song for a band, and then all of a sudden you're listening to their whole discography. And, or there are the bands that are associated with them, and then the same like with movies. You see one little trailer or a clip, and then you just like you're in straight away.
Yeah, that was it.
And then
I
you
want to
just
consume
get down
it
the rabbit
all
hole and
now.
going for everything you can.
Shout out to my friend Marshall at the time, who also got into the Jackie Chan films with me, and somehow managed. I don't even know where he got them. Managed to get VHSs of various pretty obscure films.
Man, VHSs of Jackie Chan were going around my school quite rampantly.
Yeah,
definitely.
For sure.
See, I used to watch these films with our friend Tom. I used to go into his house a lot, and he would have just collections and collections of these like Chinese martial arts films, and I would never know what
City
we were
Hunter
watching.
and Con. Is it Con? No, what am I trying to think of?
I can't remember names.
Operation Condor or something.
Operation Condor is dope. Yeah.
Just shit like that, man. It was good stuff.
Yeah,
We'd just sit there eating raw meringue, watching kung fu movies. It was good times.
Okay, that's a way to do it.
Well, we were like 12 or 13, just hopped up on sugar. So
nice.
You know.
Hot Top of Sugar and Jackie Chan's kicking ass.
Yeah, which one of you tried to like, I don't know, like jump out of the window into a bush or whatever?
Oh, Tom actually jumped off his settee once and whacked his head off his like not a chandelier, but his like light fitting and like pretty much knocked himself out. That was
hell yeah.
That's a good young child, like teenage injury. That's a good one.
Yeah.
Jumping off a garage into a hedge, that's a good one. Everyone should have done that once, I think.
Yeah, that's the legacy of Jackie Chan, is injuring teenagers everywhere.
I was just trying to remember which film of Jackie Chan's was it that he jumps into an arcade machine and he becomes Street Fighter.
It was City Hunter, I think.
Oh, the Street Fighter one?
I thought it was Project
City Hunter.
He
becomes Chun-Li, doesn't he?
Yeah, he becomes Chun-Li. I've seen that bit, but I don't think I've actually ever watched that entire film that it's from.
It's the best best Street Fighter live action, I think.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah, that's ever been filmed.
I agree completely.
That film kind of, like how we'll get to it later on, but you know how this film's got, the one we're going to talk about today, it's got like you've kind of got the big bad Russian dude.
Oh yeah.
Like, I found that as a trope in a lot of kung fu films that I've seen. They always have like a big white dude. Like,
there's a good reason for that.
Is that you can tell me? I don't know.
Well, we'll get into the politics of kung fu later, I guess. Maybe briefly.
For sure. That is a trope. I agree.
But before we move on, Ollie, how have you watched anything this week you want to talk about?
I actually haven't. Last week I promised I was going to start my Bondathon, but
you did, yeah.
But Last of Us 2 came out, so I've kind of just been engrossed by Last of Us 2, to be honest. And it's really good, to be fair. I won't say anything because if you spoil video games these days, people will lynch you.
Yeah, don't.
Is there a plot?
Yeah, it's very plot heavy, those games. To be honest, you're probably watching most of it than you are actually playing it.
Oh wow.
But, yeah, I'm not a fan of like online games and stuff like that. I prefer like just playing by yourself in a dark room.
That
sounds weird.
It doesn't sound weird, Ollie. Just live your truth. Just be yourself. It's okay.
No, I prefer like single player games. Yeah.
Personally. And dark
you like the
story
driven stuff, and you like immersing yourself in that kind of thing.
Yeah.
I think it's fair. I like a mix of both, frankly.
I don't know why I never got into that because, like, Liam, you're into like your MMOs and stuff like that, and
I play a ton of Overwatch. That's what I do a lot.
I don't know why. I just never got into stuff like that, which is weird because like we generally have like a shared. The things we like are quite similar, but for some reason I never got into.
If I'm gonna sit home alone and watch a story play out, it's gonna be a movie every time, not a video game. For me personally.
I think I'm the same.
Yeah, I'm kind of done with TV, to be honest. I find it so hard to watch TV shows now.
That was out of nowhere.
No, it's like you were talking about like. You'd rather watch a film than play a video game.
Oh, sure.
I'd rather watch a film over watching TV or a video game.
Oh, I would too. It's actually the investment that I don't like. Like, I can happily invest like 3 hours into a film. They're not normally 3 hours, but I can do that. But I don't want to invest like 17 hours into a TV show when it's probably not going to end. It's
weird because I usually can't. Unlike the two of you, I have a kid, so I can't really watch anything at all until like 9:30 or 10 p.m.
At which time you're knackered.
Right. So at that point, as much as I'd rather watch a feature film, I'm like, can I actually stay up till midnight tonight? Am I going to be able to do that? I guess I'll just watch another episode of whatever.
Until you do, I actually still are up at midnight anyway. But
sometimes. Yeah, it depends.
But yes, sadly I didn't watch any of the films. I could tell you a lot of YouTube videos I've watched of toy reviews, but I won't bore you with those. So what have you watched, Liam?
Oliver,
well, I was going to say I watched Falling Down because obviously Joel Schumacher died this week.
Yeah.
Which was only a couple of days ago, actually, I think it was. Which is real sad because we just covered him on the podcast.
I know, like, I think
I thought you guys were only talking about films you hadn't seen before.
We did a couple of special episodes for the 90s, so we just covered Batman Forever.
Oh, cool.
And so we talked a little bit about Schumacher in that, not heavily about Schumacher really, but it's I know you definitely mentioned that he was an older man, so yeah.
I didn't realise he was like 80. I mean, obviously at that time I didn't realise until we did the podcast. Didn't realise he was 80.
No, and he leaves a certain amount of legacy behind him. Schumacher, I think we said at the time he was a bit of a kind of I don't know how did you word it, like workman director. But I thought I'd watch Falling Down again because it's, for me, one of his most iconic films, really. I gotta say, I didn't actually have a great time with it. But
I haven't seen it in about 20 years, probably. I don't know.
I've heard it doesn't hold up super well.
I don't think it really holds up that well, and to me it's kind of glorifying a kind of white attitude that's really not attractive in people. So like it was not the best to watch, if I'm honest. But I forgot Robert Duvall was in it, and I really liked Robert Duvall in it. So that was positive.
Well done, Bobby Duvall.
I read an interesting interview though with Joel Schumacher the other day.
Oh yeah.
That obviously he did, before he died. But apparently he had sex with 20,000 men, which I think is incredible. That means he's had sex with a guy per year for like over 50 years. That is incredible.
What?
You said 20. You said 20,000.
20,000. That's his claim.
That's not
possible.
Physically possible. Yeah.
That's what he says.
Nah, who's the other guy who said the same thing? And Warren Beatty, maybe.
Was it
Will Chamberlain? Somebody. And I remember a stand-up comic doing a bit like, you'd have to be like scrambling your eggs while you're doing it at the same time every morning. Like it's impossible that happens.
Impossible. You wouldn't be able to do anything else.
Right, yeah. Ever. You'd have to be an amazing multitasker.
Yeah. I think it's fair to say, though, that Joel Schumacher enjoyed his life and had a very good time.
Yeah, I that part I can 100% agree with. Yeah.
Apparently, like, the filmmaking side of his career was like a second part of his career. He didn't start directing until like his mid-40s or something. Like before that, he was in costume and hair design, wasn't he? For films, and he did that for many years.
Did not know.
So yeah.
Well done, Joel.
Well done, Joel.
Well done.
R.I.P. You 20,000 men.
He had 20,000 men.
I only did half as well personally.
Half as well.
So I feel pretty pathetic now.
Wait, you still got some time to make.
Yeah, that's a good point. That's a good point.
Trying to think of the logistics of making maths out of this, but maybe we should move on.
Have you watched anything, Brandon? This
have
week?
I watched? I don't think I did. I watched half of. So, like I said, I don't start anything until late at night, so I only got halfway through a movie called The Bigamist, which was from the 50s.
Oh, cool.
Directed by Ida Lupino.
Oh, cool.
And it was really good. I was really enjoying it. I can't wait to see what happens. I have a feeling that the guy's marriage isn't going to go very well.
Because the title.
Yeah. Because the title's literal. But other than that, I'm not sure. Joan Fontaine's in it. She's great. I always forget how great she was.
Oh, lovely.
And Ida Lupino is someone I don't know anything about. She was directing in the 50s in Hollywood, which she's pretty much alone in that. Yeah. Which is pretty cool. And I'm always a fan of watching films from people who are underrepresented or, have a different point of view from the majority of people making films at the time.
Absolutely. Yeah.
It's pretty fascinating because it is a fairly standard Hollywood kind of melodrama of the early 50s, but just that kind of her point of view is ever so slightly different.
It will give her a different kind of feel to it.
Yeah, which is pretty fascinating. I'm sure I watched something else, but I couldn't tell you what it is off the top of my head.
Awesome. I feel like I want to check that out, actually.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. It's on Mubi, M-U-B-I, which I get for free because I teach, which is nice.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, so basically I've been doing nothing but watching Mubi for the last 3 months or whatever because they gave it away for free to university lecturers. Huh. So that's been great.
That's pretty cool. Yeah, that is pretty cool.
Yeah, there are some perks to being a teacher. Definitely.
That's that one and Adobe software for free.
Adobe.
Those are the two. Those are the two main ones.
I miss that. I used to get it. I still get it at a nice discount, but I don't get it for free anymore, which was super nice.
Those are the two main perks: is Mubi and.
But to be fair,
Adobe.
Even at half price, it's. I think you get your money, your value.
Oh, for sure,
money.
For sure. It's just a little perk of the job.
Compared to Red Giant, I was looking into getting a few of those the other day, and then it was like, that'll be £1,000 for a year's license. I'm like, fuck
no, get out of here with that. I only bought those for the counterfeit video, actually. I think.
Oh, okay.
I think I used Mirror for the environments, and Particular for some nonsense, Smoke or Spark. I don't remember.
I have no idea what's going on.
So this is a music video that me and Brandon directed together for a band called Counterfeit, and the lead singer guitarist of Counterfeit is, what's his name?
Jamie something Campbell.
Anyway, he plays young Grindelwald in the Harry Potter and the Fantastic Beasts movies.
Oh, okay.
And he's been in some other stuff, hasn't he?
He was also briefly in one of the actual Harry Potter movies, which is super funny. because when we were pitching the idea to them over Skype, Ollie was trying to reference something visual from one of the Harry Potter films. And he goes, I don't know if you guys have seen the, Harry Potter 4 or 5 or 6 or some nonsense. And it could be that we could do these shots that are like this from that movie. That would be cool, right? And to be fair to Jamie, he didn't say anything.
It was the movie he was in.
Yeah, it was the movie he was in.
I didn't know.
No, I didn't either.
You might have seen this little film.
The video kind of centers on this. I don't know what the plot was really. This witch is like chasing down the band who are in like like what era is it? Like a 60s kind of.
It was a 9th. Oh God, I don't remember the car. I think it was like 67 or 8. The car. Yeah,
and she's like chasing them down with like bats and monsters and stuff like that. It's all right. Check it out.
You made this.
Yeah, we both made. Okay. It's called Can't
But you have no idea what the plot was or what's in it.
I can't remember. It was a long time ago.
The plot was there's a band, and then there's a witch, and then there's a car, and it looks pretty cool.
It looks cool.
The car
it's got nice
cool.
music over it.
Yeah, it's got some fun rock tunes. It's got some cool images. That is the plot.
That's what you need.
Yeah, that's all you need.
But yeah, it's quite nerve-wracking though when you've got like an actor though who's been in some big productions. I think he was the original Alex Rider as well, which is like a film character.
He's been in quite a few like young adult fiction, science fiction. He was in. I can't remember which one's which of those things because I haven't watched any of them. Maybe like Mortal Engines or Bones of whatever the hell. I don't know. He's in like he's in
the
one
with the maze hunter.
One of the maze ones. I don't know.
But like he's been on these massive productions, and there's us in this little rinky-dink studio in Leicester, and I'm trying to like do my best to like apply blood wounds and bullet holes on the faces and shit like that, and yeah. I thought it was pretty great. Like it's intimidating for a second, but he never, much like the fact that he didn't say anything about like, yes, of course I've seen it, you idiot, I was in it. He never did that, and he never. No, to be fair, at any point, he was really chilled out. At no point did he try and like pull some diva crap where I've been in big production. He never did that at all. And to be fair, in the meeting when we were talking to them, like they were like, "What's the label said the budget was?" And we said something like, "Oh, $3,000." He goes, "I'll tell you what, we'll double it." And we're like, "Wee!"
Oh, nice.
yeah. Oh. So it was pretty cool, and they were all of them were pretty much up for any direction that we gave, including the actor guy. And I don't know about you, Ollie, but my experience was directing. Jamie was great because you don't really have to do anything because he's.
Oh yeah, he knows.
Yeah, he's just such a natural on camera, and he's been around the block, so. You go like pretend like there's a giant bat on the roof of the car and he's 100% in.
He's there. Yeah.
Then you don't have to say anything else. He's completely doing it, which I could never do.
I felt sorry for the drummer or whatever. We have to shove the white contact lens in his eyes and then the blood pills in his mouth and stuff.
Oh, that I think that's the other guitar player. Tristan. That's Tristan.
Right.
But they love it, don't they?
They seem to enjoy themselves. Yeah. I mean, I hope so. Have to ask them.
Yeah. The studio where we filmed it, the guy makes his own films in this like little studio, like feature films, and he'll make those films that are called like Triassic Park and stuff like that, and they're like horror films, with, like, really bad CGI dinosaurs, but they get like proper like distribution deals. So you go to Sainsbury's and you'll see it there, and
100% porn as well, for sure.
Yeah. Oh, does he?
I mean, there was a set in the back that absolutely was that for sure.
I know the DP that we had, director of photography, he said last week when we shot, he was like, yeah, last week I shot a porno. It just stunk. We all had to have these like salt things that we could put over our noses that could like hide the scent.
Yeah, Will.
Sounded great. So rough.
Will, talented kid.
He's a good guy, yeah, he's a good guy.
Shout out to people we've worked with, everybody, just because I'm going to forget people. And
yeah,
there you go.
Well, it's just what the indie movie scene's kind of like, isn't it, in this country? The amount of people you work with and to cross paths all the time.
Cool beans. Should we talk about the film that we watched?
Okay, so we're up in our little mini-series adventure. We're up to 1972 now. And kind of what are you guys' opinions on film in 1972 first? Because there's some pretty damn big films that come out this year, for me, anyway.
You're going to have to tell me what any of them are, because I didn't research this part at all.
Well, by far, the biggest film of the year is The Godfather.
Oh, yeah, 100%.
Okay. I've never heard of that.
Little film you may have heard of. It's
that's a pretty good movie for those of you out there that haven't seen it. Recommend.
I rewatched that fairly recently, actually, and it's just like I forgot how long the wedding sequence is at the beginning.
Yeah.
It's about 40 minutes long.
Is it really?
You're like introduced to every single character in the film in that sequence. Though
it's pretty brilliant.
It's like 40
yeah.
minutes.
Hot take. I watched Godfather yesterday, and it's a good film.
You watched it yesterday? That is a really hot take.
I didn't watch it for the first time yesterday, but I figured I'd watch it.
I like watching stuff that's like considered canon or classics with, for example, my wife who doesn't likes movies but isn't as into it as I am, and she'll go, "Man, this is really good," and you'll be like, "Oh wow, hot take, well done."
Oh, well, yeah.
I wonder
Funny enough, good film.
If Marlon Brando was meant to be difficult on that set, or what? I wonder what the crack was with him on that one.
This is kind of funny to say.
I was going to bring up Brando at some point anyway.
He's very good in Godfather. It's like
yeah.
I'm so used to him being parodied doing that and people taking the piss. But
no, that's a proper good movie.
Watching it, he's properly in and he's properly committed, and that's such a good, like, full-bodied, like, everything performance about it.
That's fantastic.
Like, it's like Al Pacino. He's so kind of toned down in that.
Oh, he's amazing. Yeah,
he's so good. And even James Caan is brilliant in it as well.
Yeah. Uncle James is fantastic. Yeah.
Bobby Duvall is in it as well.
Bobby Duvall again.
Bobby Duvall does not look like Bobby Duvall in it, though.
No, does not at all.
To be honest, I haven't seen that in probably 20 years.
Yeah,
so I couldn't tell you.
I've got something to admit. I've never seen the third one.
I haven't either.
I haven't either.
Yeah,
I should watch.
That makes the three of us. I've seen the.
I've definitely seen the first two because it's like you have to.
Yeah, you have
when
to,
we get back to the 90s, Liam, when we've done 100+ episodes, we'll do Godfather Part 3.
We'll do Godfather Part 3, great.
And Brandon will be on.
No, please no. Late career Francis Coppola not super worried about it. And once he's unlike Martin Scorsese, once he stopped doing cocaine, he couldn't make movies anymore. Really,
late career, 30 odd years ago.
You're telling me Jack isn't a classic?
Jack is pretty solid.
I forgot he directed that, man. Oh,
it's the weirdest thing.
I don't think I've ever seen that either. Actually,
you've got him and Bill Cosby in a Robin Williams and Bill Cosby in a.
Oh boy!
In a tree house, and they keep farting into a biscuit tin.
Stop saying this.
What is that?
They fart into a biscuit tin, so
can you stop? I don't want to hear anything about any of this anymore. Thank you. Goodbye. I'm taking my headphones off and I'm walking away.
To be honest, late period Coppola was stand up for Dracula.
Oh yeah, Dracula's wicked.
So.
But everything else can go to hell.
The production design on that is
it's amazing. Yeah. But after that, Sophia rips him apart for sure.
Yeah. And I love Coppola, so yeah.
What's he done? What's his?
He did a lot of experimental. I haven't seen any of them, frankly. But in the 2000s and 2010s, he did. I can't remember the names of any of them. There's one like in black and white with people getting electrocuted and shit. What's that called?
God, what is that called?
Do you know what I'm talking about, though?
Yeah.
I want to say Brown Bunny Guy's in it, isn't he? I don't remember.
Oh, Vincent D'Onofrio? No, Vincent
Gallo.
Gallo, that's
Vincent Gallo.
I could be wrong. Honestly, he did like 2 or 3, maybe even 4 films that had like live soundtracks or were interactive or had all types of weird crap going on, which is interesting, but none of them apparently very good.
So his last ones were Youth Without Youth,
That's
Tetro.
It. Tetro was what I was thinking of.
Tetro.
Distant Vision, and he's got one coming out this year called Megalopolis.
Okay.
He did a Val Kilmer film with Bruce Dern in it as well. About a period piece. Twixt or something? Was it called?
Wow. I think I know what you mean. Was Bruce Lee in that one too, or?
Yeah, that was the last Bruce Lee film.
Okay. Can you imagine a Francis Ford Coppola Bruce Lee combo?
Oh, it would have been wonderful in the 70s.
I don't think it would have worked at all, but it would have been pretty interesting.
We were definitely robbed of a lot of Bruce Lee.
Yeah, we'll get to that.
Yeah.
So other films that came out this year, you got Deliverance.
Never seen it. Never seen it.
Yeah. Really? Yeah. I'm surprised you haven't seen that.
Yeah, I'm surprised too. It's on. It's one of those films that I keep saying I should probably watch that when I get around to.
I'm a big fan of Deliverance, actually. I don't know if it would... It's one of those... I'm a big fan of it, but I haven't seen it in so long that I'm not sure if it would hold up. But,
I'll give it a try.
Well, you've got that great little... Dueling
banjos, everyone knows that, yeah.
Yeah.
And even just like the kind of the... I doubt it's the first film to do this in the absolute slightest, but the kind of... the fearfulness of the Southern American states, that rural kind of weird and stuff like that. That's definitely a feeling in that, and that probably persists on. You got Chainsaw Massacre and stuff like that coming out.
Yeah. I saw Southern Comfort. I've seen that. That came out after that, didn't it?
It did come out after, yeah.
They're like way
Similar
after
sort
that,
of
like
stuff,
10 years easily. Yeah. That's the thing in my head. I confuse those two films.
Yeah, that's understandable. Was
Yeah.
it Last House on the Left is also this year as well?
Yes, yeah.
What the hell is that?
It's a horror film.
Wes Craven's first horror film. I remember it being great. It's one of those controversial early horror films, but it's Wes Craven. He knows what he's doing, and I think
he
a gang
does,
of
for
yous
sure.
I think a gang of yous grab a teenage girl or two teenage girls, and kind of torture them, and then someone comes to save them. I think.
Oh, sounds great. Sounds super fun. Can't
yeah,
wait.
it's super nice.
I'm opening up.
But you also got.
Wait, hold on, guys. You're not coming with the heat. The first two movies to talk about are Solaris and Aguirre, The Wrath of God.
Yeah, I was going to get to Solaris. I've never seen Aguirre.
Oh, it's wicked. It's so great.
Really
It's definitely, well, between those two and The Godfather, it's hard to say which one I like the most, if I'm honest.
Oh, really?
Yeah, those are 10 out of 10 classic films.
I would say that it was my alternative for this year if we hadn't done Bruce Lee. I did want to cover that film. So
I'm a big Herzog fanatic.
Yeah, I've mainly seen his docs, but I do. Fitzcarraldo is the only film of his I've seen.
That's great too. Aguirre and Fitzcarraldo are the most similar. Like they're fairly similar to one another.
Yeah, sure.
I liked Aguirre more in my mind, but it's another one I saw a long time ago, so I can't.
Yeah.
I don't know, but they are pretty similar. I actually recently, something I did see recently from this year is Un Flic, which means a cop, from France, obviously, by Jean-Pierre Melville, starring Alain Delon, which I didn't think was good at all. I thought it was crap.
Okay.
Yeah, it had the most hilariously bad. The first 10 minutes are amazing, incredible, but then in the middle of the film, it has this big heist scene, which was what happens in French crime films at the time.
Sure,
and this guy was great at it. And the middle of that scene's great, but the setup is a helicopter has to fly over a train. It's a lot like Mission Impossible or something. Okay. And it's a cool idea, but they just could not do it technically in France at that time. And so they are literally playing with toys on screen.
Oh my God.
And playing it off as real. And I was falling out of my couch laughing my ass off. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. So recommend you people track that down. It's a pretty incredible bit of cinema.
And you got 5 Fingers of Death.
Did that come out this year?
Apparently it did, yeah.
That's a great one. We also have 2 Lone Wolf and Cub films.
Wow, 2.
Yeah. The early 70s is basically sets the stage for every other martial arts film you've ever seen, essentially, is what I've learned in my research this week.
There's also, before we move on to talk martial arts, actually, because this year's also landmarking kind of queer cinema, because Pink Flamingos comes out this year.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, was that
by
72?
far
Jeez.
kind of...
I haven't seen
John
that
Waters'
either,
biggest
actually.
film. It's not an easy watch.
No,
I can't
I've
ever
heard.
recommend Pink Flamingos. But,
I remember watching it when I was quite
exists.
young, because I saw an image from it. I was like, I kind of want to see this film. And I remember watching it. I was like, what did I just watch?
What the hell did I just watch? Yeah.
But I am a fan of John Waters' films,
Me too.
so I do enjoy his
I love
films.
Serial Mom. I love Pekka. I love Crybaby. I've never seen.
I think
his
we're the only
Hairspray.
people in the world who likes Pekka.
I know. I think I am. Yeah. Oh, we are. Yeah.
I don't think I've seen one John Waters movie, actually, which is ridiculous, but
It's great.
there you go. That is crazy.
He hasn't done anything since The Dirty Shame, I don't think, which was almost 15, 16 years ago.
Yeah. Cecil B. Demented was before Dirty Shame, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, it's probably
There's a lot of Woody Allen films this year. More than one. How did he do that?
Woody Allen. I don't want to talk about Woody Allen.
I can't stand him, but I'm just going through what happened in 1972. There's
I guess it's like Bruce Lee did all of his films in the space of 2 years. Didn't he?
2 years. Well, we're gonna get to. I did some deep research on kung fu movies from this time period, just because I was trying to remind myself as to the environment that Bruce Lee was coming into and changing.
So this week we're covering Fist of Fury from 1972. It's not directed by Bruce Lee. It was directed by, what's his name?
Lo Wei.
Wai, I think, who directed The Big Boss first. But yeah, let's drop that trailer.
He's unstoppable, unbeatable, unbelievable. He's Bruce Lee, the master of karate, kung fu, delivering the Chinese connection. Bruce Lee, the Oriental superstar who exploded across the screens of America in the phenomenally successful Fists of Fury, is back to defend the honor of his nation and the love of his woman. Using his furious fists and superhuman strength, he breaks them up, smashes them down, and kicks them apart. Bruce Lee, the karate kung fu king, delivers the death blow of the Chinese connection.
It felt really silly to kind of do a 1970s series and not do Bruce Lee, who is just iconically in those 4 years, really, at the start of this year, just the biggest movie star in the world, really. And
makes sense.
Still is an absolute icon. You're going beyond who Bruce Lee was. So, before we talk about Bruce Lee, what do you think about Bruce Lee as a character? How well do you know him? I really have only ever seen Enter the Dragon. Was the only thing I've ever seen about Bruce Lee, but I think we said it before. I know him as a kind of a figure of art and a figure of pop culture more than anything else.
Who goes first?
I'll go first because mine's pretty brief.
Okay.
So yeah, other than talking about the Batman 66 series that I watched when I was a kid, but I probably wasn't really cognizant of who he was. The first time I ever properly watched a film of his knowing who he was Enter the Dragon, and I've watched that quite a few times, to be fair. I do enjoy that film. But for some reason, I've never watched Big Boss or some of his other films. But yeah,
was this the first time for both of you with this one?
The first time for me, yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
Cool. Wicked. So for me, during that period we talked about earlier where I was getting into Jackie Chan, obviously next step is Bruce Lee, if that's what you did. No two ways about it. So very specifically, somewhere around the ages of maybe 15 or 16 or 17, my dad got me the DVD box set that had just been released of all of his movies.
DVD box set?
Yeah, DVD, standard definition,
Nice.
Cropped, pan and scan, dubbed Bruce Lee box set with this film, with all of the films, but they were called, I think we'll get to the title controversy, well, not controversy, but confusion in a second. Yeah. But at that point, this was in the mid-90s, I guess, the first film was called Fist of Fury, a.k.a. The Big Boss. This film was called The Chinese Connection, a.k.a. Fist of Fury. Actual title, Jingwu School, essentially. Shall
we say this, by the way? Do you know why it was called The Chinese Connection? Because I think this is hilarious.
Well, no I read what you read, which was they were trying to get people to compare it to the French Connection.
Is that what it was?
Yeah, which makes loads of sense, frankly.
Well, that was the previous year, wasn't it?
Yeah,
it was. Yeah. 1979.
So I believe that one, actually, frankly.
I do, but apparently it was accidental that they released it under that title.
Yeah, the two films got confused because they were all released within 12 months of each other. So it was just, and no one at the time. This wasn't an industry that the West had dealt with or looked at or gave two craps about at any point. So they didn't know what they were doing.
Networks. Yeah.
No, and it was just whatever, slap it on it and throw it in a cinema in Chinatown in New York and call it a day. Put it
out there, yeah.
And that's actually what Bruce Lee changed, frankly, his star power. But what was I saying? Oh yeah, so he got me that DVD box set, watched them all, liked them a lot, but I think because they were dubbed into English, they weren't as good.
Okay.
Enter the Dragon.
Subs before dubs, always.
Well, with Bruce Lee in particular, because for this film especially, the English dub is just terrible, right. And the guy doing Bruce Lee's voice is just awful. But
also, I never trust them because, if you ever watched Akira, the dub on that kind of changes the plot.
I don't, you know what?
Changes a lot of things, so I always try and go for subs.
Who cares? Well, there's no plot. Who cares? It's the emotional content. The way Bruce Lee screams his lines is the whole reason you're watching the film.
Yeah,
not
he's
to hear
acting.
He's acting, and I want to hear his voice.
And I want to see him act and hear him.
Right.
These are dubbed anyway, though, aren't they? They're dubbed.
They are. Yeah, everything.
Yeah, no, absolutely, absolutely. They didn't have sync sound at the time, but he did his own Cantonese lines and he did the ADR on that, so it's his voice. So it makes a huge difference for this particular film. I would say not always, but on this one for sure. Anyway, because of that, and because I liked Jackie Chan's kind of action style so much, and that kind of 80s, early 90s scene, I sort of underrated them at the time, I think.
Okay.
Yeah, I didn't really like them as much. It's a different style. It's a bit older.
Yeah.
Nobody on the screen can keep up with Bruce Lee's speed, really.
No.
Whereas by the time you get to like the mid '80s, you've got a whole group of people that can go toe to toe with Sammo Hung and Jackie Chan and all that.
Yeah.
And so I was so into that particular era of Hong Kong cinema, I couldn't really appreciate these films for what they were, I think, at the time, with the exception of Enter the Dragon, which was more fun. And
well, it's a much bigger film. It's a much bigger production, American production as well.
Yeah, had more side
Warner
characters.
Brothers, isn't it?
Yeah.
Just a lot of fun. That film's just loads of fun. Has good fun lines. Has some dialogue that I quote to this day all the time. I adore it. But the other ones I kind of like was a little bit resistant to, and then at some point later in life, found or downloaded, or I don't even remember, watched them in Cantonese and was like, actually, this is completely awesome. What was I thinking? So anyway, yeah, long history with Bruce Lee. Know him very well.
I think it's really interesting if you watch Big Boss, which is only the year before this, directed by the same guy as well,
Yeah,
and then
very
watch
similar.
this. They learn how to shoot Bruce Lee in
For
that
sure.
year. Like the way they shoot Big Boss, the close-ups are like too close. Like you don't get to see their knees and legs and their hips kind of thing. And then the wide shots are way too wide. They're almost like kind of because we'll probably talk about this, but obviously martial arts films come out of kind of Chinese opera theatre, and like the wide shots are just shot like a stage, really. And then when
the sets are pretty much like that, aren't they? They look like a theatre stage, don't they? The way
Yeah, totally. The Shaw Brothers Studios were 100. Well, I read
this was Golden Harvest, wasn't it?
This was Golden Harvest. This was one of their first. I think The Big Boss might have been almost their first film. Close enough.
Do you know what else Golden Harvest produced?
All the Jackie Chan movies, of course.
No, Ninja Turtles, the first one.
Oh, well, hell done. Hell yeah.
Yeah, man, that's why the martial arts are quite good in that one.
That's a good point. Actually, they are. Actually, that's true. I found out today that I always forget this, that Shaw Brothers helped fund Blade Runner later.
What?
Yeah.
How?
Because the Shaw Brothers movie studio, who essentially invented what we think of as kung fu movies today, started in the 1920s. I did my background on this. Because I was curious. I always forget like how it happened, and I'm always like, it's just a very interesting bit of history, really. Started in the opera, as you say, in real life, the guys who ran it, and then basically started filming opera stuff, Chinese opera stuff, and that's in the 1920s, and that slowly leads to the kung fu boom in the 60s and 70s. By the time you get to the 80s, Golden Harvest is wiping the floor with them financially. Okay. And they can't really keep up anymore. Their films aren't as popular, so they're like, we'll just fund whatever the hell out in the West to try and make money. So they invested in Blade Runner, among other things.
Well, you know, like how Shaw Brothers films, they tend to have like the same sets and just reuse them.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
Did Golden Harvest do that? So I didn't know like if the sets built for this would have been reused for.
They must have been, because that whole industry, whether it was Shaw Brothers, Golden Harvest, or anyone in between, was pumping stuff out at a ridiculous rate.
And it was shoestring as well. Like this film was like shot 100K, I think, or something.
I have no idea, but
it looks great though.
It looks fantastic. But
yeah, they all do, and this is true for the Shaw Brothers films as well. They look shockingly good for the speed at which they make them, and I to this day don't 100% understand how they did it.
Yeah.
For me though, I think this visually looked better than some of the Shaw Brothers I've seen from that time, and like the early Jackie Chan films, which look a bit scrappier.
It
depends.
A
lot more.
It depends.
Okay.
Yeah, no, this one looks great. I love it. I agree. But I watched some Shaw Brothers from like 69 and 70, and some of them are still kind of stagey and the lighting's like not realistic and stuff. But then occasionally you get like flashes of brilliance and films that really stick out. So King Hugh's films, which kicked off the whole thing in the late 60s, those look fantastic. Okay. So like Come Drink With Me and A Touch of Zen. And the other one that I should know the name of and I'm forgetting, look amazing and are essentially the blueprint for like Crouching Tiger and Hero.
I was going to say that. So that's what kind of happens, isn't it? You've got that kind of, what's the term again? Wuha?
Wuxia.
Wuxia, thanks. Kind of, and that's the theatre stuff that kind of got that more fantastical, mythical element of,
right, with like wires and stuff.
Yeah, and that really gets replaced by what Bruce Lee brings in for a long time.
Well, the other person I wanted to mention from the Shaw Brothers, who we shouldn't lump in with kind of the cheaper, crappier films, is Chang Che, who made One Armed Swordsman in '67, and made a movie called Vengeance in 1970, which I've never seen.
Okay.
But I watched a couple of fight scenes today and was literally blown away. Look amazing, like Fist of Fury. Look great. The action's
kind of
really
modern,
great.
The modern kind of more violent kind of fight.
Yeah. He's Chang Cheh is sort of like the godfather of your John Woos in that.
Okay.
And definitely influenced Bruce Lee massively, I would say, in terms of kind of setting the stage just a few years earlier for Bruce Lee to kind of take that torch and do his own thing with it.
I think that's great because I think about Bruce Lee, the problem with Bruce Lee is that he stops becoming the person Bruce Lee, and to this day he's not just the man Bruce Lee. He's an absolute icon and cultural figure of China. When you see him on screen, he represents China more than anything else. And I think because of that, what he did gets overblown, even though you can't diminish like what he does.
No, I think it's not because of the quality of the films almost at all. It's because of him and his star power. Just period.
Him. Yeah,
he's just the guy has raw star power out of control. Yeah. Like you can't. It's undeniable.
He doesn't even have to say anything. It's just his face and his eyes are just so impactful and intense.
He's so charismatic by being there. And
I saw somebody, I was reading some reviews of this on Letterboxd and stuff, and somebody said if you replaced Bruce Lee with another star of the era, who are people that I like a lot, it wouldn't be a very good film. Really, it'd be okay. The story of this is solid. Like Ollie said, it looks really great. It's got some good side characters in that, but we wouldn't be talking about it really.
Yeah. Well, because his character doesn't have much dialogue. He's almost like the Terminator in it. He is a little bit around
he's
killing
silent.
people.
Yeah, that's because Bruce Lee is able to be silent and be kind of sexy and charismatic and everything and strong and powerful and be silent. It makes this film work.
Absolutely.
Whereas if you just had someone who didn't have all those elements in him, he'd just be kind of boring, maybe.
No, exactly right. Yeah, his Bruce Lee's films hinge almost entirely on him, really. The same way. The same thing's true of Jackie Chan and Jet Li, but with I don't know. Bruce Lee's on a different plane of existence. There's just no one like him.
It's like you talk about him. Like as a kid, I hadn't seen his films, but it inspired me to and Liam, I guess. We did martial arts when we were kids. We did Taekwondo.
Oh, cool.
For quite a few years. Did you forget?
Yeah, kind of.
And I did alright. I did a few tournaments and stuff like that.
Oh, well done. Did you kill anybody?
No, I got win. I took down 3 black belts though when I was only a green belt, and I got a medal, which is
wow, that's definitely the start of a good movie where you kill loads of people.
That is, yeah. And then they get mad at you and kill your master.
In one of the fights, I got winded.
That's how it is.
But yeah, I was definitely influenced by Bruce Lee to do martial arts, even though I hadn't seen any of his films. Wow. Just goes to show how influential he is in the kind of public consciousness, even though they haven't seen any of his films. It's like Jimi Hendrix. Everyone knows who Jimi Hendrix is. There probably a lot of people haven't heard his music and how influential it is, but he's just a known.
Yeah, it's true. Yeah, the image of him is so powerful somehow. Yeah. For some, you can't even really describe why.
Yeah,
it's complicated as well because and the film is all about this, so we'll go into it again. But he becomes China at the time. China's going through the Cultural Revolution as well at this time period. So the
time the film is made?
Yeah, totally. Like in the 60s and 70s, they're going through the kind of similar stuff. So they're kind of
it's complicated because he's in Hong Kong, isn't he? Which is not China.
Yeah, absolutely.
As they will tell you.
But this film is set in Shanghai.
It is, yeah.
And the kind of the way he's been sold ever since, and really the way traditional martial arts were used in Chinese culture to kind of boost China and to take something that they could see as their own and something that's definitely Chinese culture and boost it as a strength of the Chinese people and the Chinese country, and to have kind of Bruce Lee as that icon of these traditional martial arts going out there and being better than everyone else internationally was a big source of pride to them. And a big sort of kind of power to that kind of culture at the time, which is really why stuff like, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood happens. You think it's just a scene with Bruce Lee, but it gets very controversial because what other people see in that scene is an American beating China and not just a scene between two actors on a set. Like Bruce Lee stops kind of representing Bruce Lee at some point and just starts representing like the strength of what China can be, and not the kind of, the weak man of Asia, which they use in this, or the sick man.
Which I found out was a real phrase.
It was, absolutely.
Which I had no idea was like a phrase for dying empires more generically.
Yeah, and China take it absolutely to heart. They embody that phrase at this time period, because you got a century of what they call like, is it the helplessness century of the previous generation? And
who are we talking about? Previous to Bruce Lee or previous to the
just China,
period of the film?
Previous to kind of World War II. Really,
okay,
when this is set, they kind of see China as like a failing kind of country because they weren't standing up for themselves and stuff
against who, Liam? Against who, Liam?
The British and the Japanese,
the Americans too, but definitely
and the Americans. Yeah,
we're the baddies as usual.
Wasn't Bruce Lee actually American though?
So we should get to this because this is what's
born in America.
He was born in San Francisco.
I would never say he's an American.
No,
he's an American. No, he's an American citizen.
But he is an American citizen. Yeah,
he's an American citizen, so he's an American. You don't have to. There's no qualification to being an American, sure. Which is nice. So he definitely was. Obviously, also definitely Chinese. But apparently, his ancestry is not entirely known. Particularly on his mother's side, he may in fact be like a quarter European.
Oh.
But it's like really unclear.
Sure.
Because his history is insane. As Liam and I were talking about this before the recording, his life even before he was a movie star just seems impossible.
And
it starts right from birth. So his dad was already a star in the Cantonese opera scene, which is why Bruce Lee was a child actor. Step one, and a really good child actor too. Before he ever did any martial arts. Step two, his mother was related to this wildly wealthy Hong Kong super elite family, sort of like the Carnegies or the Kennedys of Hong Kong.
Okay, yeah.
Including probably being the great nephew of a knighted British Empire dude who's part British, part China. I can't even remember who the hell he is anymore. Part Dutch, who knows? Some British Empire nonsense. Very wealthy, but anyway, his mother, Bruce Lee's mother, was like part of that family, but maybe she was adopted, but maybe her dad was somebody else and her mom cheated and no one knows. And she says when they did Bruce Lee's paperwork for making sure he was an American citizen when he was born, she said that her mother was English, probably. Weird. But I was reading this on Vice.com, so who knows?
Who knows, yeah.
And the Wikipedia article's a bit vague, and his own mother was a bit vague, and another biography says he was a quarter German or something. So it's unknown. Or he's entirely Chinese. We don't.
Or he's entirely Chinese. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
adding to the mystery that is Bruce Lee.
Well,
he was a mystery from the day he was born.
Yeah.
He was. It's just his whole. I don't know how to put it, but like his star power on screen, I think, comes from him just being this like undefinable, enigmatic.
Yeah.
Guy who you shouldn't be able to say represents all of China because he had a very specific and bizarre life, entangled with the United States massively, went to college in Seattle, Seattle.
Was making films in America for 10 years before he went over to China to start making what we call Bruce Lee films.
Right. So he's a child of, two continents and lots of different cultures and happily, I think, if you listen to a lot of his interviews, thinks of himself as kind of living in a post-racial world.
Yeah, definitely.
Somebody famously asked him if he thinks of himself as Chinese or American, and he said, "I think of myself as human, or as a human being," which is the philosophy I think he generally tries to put in his films. But then you look at this movie, and it doesn't feel that way.
No,
it feels like, as Liam says, he's going, "I'm 100% Chinese. Get in. I'll kill anyone who says otherwise."
This movie is the template for like Ip Man later on. This is the template of this is a Chinese cultural hero, and it's telling you about the kind of power of what China can be in the kind of world going forward. Yeah,
the Ip Man movies, particularly the first one, references this very explicitly.
Yeah, explicitly, yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And it's kind of weird because you're talking about wuxia cinema as well, and the kind of wuxia cinema was a lot of those early Chinese films were continuously kind of taking the same cultural figures out, or mythical figures, I should say, and folklore figures. Like there's always characters that get repeated a lot. And this film does start with that one of the characters dying, which I did think was really interesting. So the guy who dies at the beginning of the film, the teacher that it's all based on, is a real person. He taught.
Yeah, the Jingwu School is real and is still going today, actually.
But because he became a kind of mythical figure in China, there's loads of stories about his life, and this is kind of one of them. about his death, really. But Bruce Lee himself doesn't portray those kind of mythical heroes that constantly get portrayed on film. But funny enough, he just becomes one. So like,
Bruce, he just is one for real.
He just becomes one himself, and Bruce because of like things like Ip Man, which only really exist because Bruce Lee exists.
Well, 100%. Nobody would have known Yip Man's name if not for Bruce Lee becoming as famous as he was.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
it's another character, a real life person who gets completely overblown, precisely because not obviously I'm sure he was a fantastic martial artist, but
sure.
You know, the portrayal of him in 8,000 films over the last 15 years is ludicrous. It's entirely because of Bruce Lee's popularity.
Yeah, it's because they can't make another Bruce Lee film. They can't make another story about his life. We've done them all. So let's look at the characters around him and make them into their own mythical figures.
Right, exactly.
And the Ip Man films themselves, like this, Ip Man films are very propaganda. We're very much
for sure
about Chinese propaganda and stuff. Nowadays
no
judgment,
really.
But like,
no, I'm not judging, but that's a truth that's always been true for at least all the Chinese movies I know. I guess they're always struggling with or working with, either struggling against or working with the government in Beijing. Hong Kong at this time was not.
No,
which is important. Which is why the Chinese movies that we associate with Chinese are all Hong Kong productions in Cantonese, with mostly Cantonese speaking actors, and not, you know, they could do the violence, they could do the sex, they could do whatever, not in this film, but in other films, because they weren't having to deal with Beijing censorship.
All right, okay.
Now the relationship's quite different, and the films are quite different because of it.
And they all get kind of pushed out. I mean, the fourth Ip Man film, which is not long come out actually, it came out in like January, I guess.
Is that one our mutual friends in?
It is. He is. Yeah, he plays a very evil American guy who's very racist. Like,
well done.
And it's that very much show was doing this kind of sick man of Asia. We are not the sick man of Asia kind of thing. Right. We are not the sick man of the world, and all that. Like, this film is probably the start of that as a kind of.
As far as I know, I don't think, I was looking into that as well because it is such a common plot.
Yeah.
After this point, for sure, it's all over the place. And it being specific to China beating other places, I don't think happened before this. But the idea of it being like one school versus another and one style versus another, which is like the genre bones of this film. Yeah. That was really common before this.
That was really common, yeah.
It took that basic plot of like, my style is better than your style, and turned it into like a nationalistic, get the fuck out of Shanghai.
Yeah. So this is traditional Chinese martial arts, and they're better than any other countries fighting. Like, so we'll have the big Russian guy in there. Because you know, they're Asia as well because it's Russia. We'll have like.
Well, usually it's always like before this, and frankly after this, it's not. It's more even local than that. It's not like all of Chinese martial arts are better than every other country. It's like south of China is better than north of China, or even more particularly, like my snake style will beat your, cricket fist or whatever. And it's it's very silly.
I think that's what I was trying to say about, like, because you got this kind of the Mao Cultural Revolution in the 66, 76 kind of area, they're pushing China as an element in itself rather than trying to segregate China in that way. So they're trying to just look at like what will become the mass of China, and try and feed that into their kind of history as well. Which obviously this film takes place in their history, really. Yeah,
for sure. I always think about how like Bruce Lee, for the first few years of his life, Hong Kong was under Japanese occupation. So for the people making this film, this is not an abstract idea to be angry. This is something that is very a raw nerve. And that they're legitimately and rightly angry about.
And you got that scene with the park in this.
Yes, for sure.
Not allowed in the park, which very much was a reality for people growing up in China.
That moment's wicked though, when he jumps up in the air and he obliterates the sign. There.
Hell yeah, man! That's one of Bruce Lee's signature moves: is jumping really high and kicking an inanimate object. I don't know why, but he like shows off. I'm pretty sure this is in Way of the Dragon, which is great as well. That's the one with Chuck Norris in it. I'm pretty sure he shows off by like kicking a ceiling lamp.
Can I ask one thing though? In that scene when he tries to get into the park or whatever, is the guy in blackface? Probably.
He's supposed to be Indian. He's supposed to be a Punjabi guard, which was a normal British Empire thing. It looked to me like it was definitely a Chinese guy in makeup.
Yeah, I thought.
Listen,
so.
it's 71.
Should we get to the meat and bones of the?
Yeah, sure. Like
we did the same thing that I told you off for, which was talk for like 17 hours before actually getting to the film.
Yeah, it's impossible.
No, it's all good though, man. It's all part.
It's all context. We're connoisseurs of context.
It's hard to. There's so much to talk about. Really, it's kind of hard.
It is. Yeah, it's hard. Like, no, go on, Brandon. Sorry.
It's just hard to like. I feel like I should have been more specific in my outlining or something, because otherwise we're just going forever remembering this, that, and the other thing.
It's just a conversation at the end of the day. It's not like we're trying to do like a hard copy documentary.
Oh God! Oh right, I'm in the wrong podcast. Then I'm sorry.
It's Bruce Lee's one. As I said, it's silly to not cover Bruce Lee, but it's such a vast topic that you could go on so little tangents. And for him,
it is hard to boil it down to like a short. I don't know, a short description. You can't. We are all three of us are struggling to come up with the words. Actually, this is what's been happening. I don't know if you've noticed this, but all of us are like, "Yeah, he's just really great," and I don't know what else to say.
I don't know what to say. He's kind of amazing, and every single person on the planet knows his name.
Yeah. Anyway, maybe you should describe setup. The setup of this film is really good. I thought.
Here you go. He's enigmatic. There you go.
He's not though. He's enigmatic by putting it all out there, isn't he?
Yeah, but he's still. I don't know.
He wears every single thing on his sleeve as huge as
he does.
possible.
He wears every little bit of emotion on every single ripple of those muscles.
Yeah, exactly right. And I think that's a perfectly great description, personally. And somehow, I don't know how you do it, where you can be that big and that enigmatic. And in fact, I'm glad you brought up The Godfather, because I wanted to bring up Marlon Brando, generically. And it occurred to me, watching this earlier, that it's a lot like A Streetcar Named Desire, in which that film is famous for introducing method acting to people.
Okay.
Yeah.
And that's a great movie all around, but it's really great because Brando is doing Brando, right? And he's just on another planet. Yeah. And everyone else in the film is doing kind of old style acting very well. But
sure.
Even in the same shot, you'll have Blanche Dubois being like she's in the 50s and him like he's in the 70s in one shot. And this film is the same, and The Big Boss is the same again, where everyone else in the film is like they're in some old movie and Bruce Lee's like vaulted into the future.
Yeah, that's such a good comparison.
That's
such a good comparison.
And it feels like he's, and in the same way again, that the intensity of the performance is similar to both those guys. I think Bruce Lee's just doing it via a martial arts movie, but it's this extremely heightened emotion that feels like it's coming from the depths of their guts and souls rather than being like a theater mask you put on.
Yeah. Yeah.
I was going to say Bruce's performance in this is more, when he's not fighting, he's more introspective, and his like outlandishness comes out in his fight scenes, whereas everyone else's like outlandishness is in there just a general performance. Do you know what I mean?
I thought it was interesting that he's a romantic lead, which it's not like in the 80s when you do action films, they're not really romance leads. They're actually, like women love them, but they're not like romantic at heart. But in this, like, he is romantic at heart. He is like a loving person. He's not just a kind of like sexy person who can kill people. And a lot of this film is dedicated to that as well. I was surprised how much
he full on makes out with that girl in the graveyard.
She's brilliant. She's also in Way of the Dragon.
Oh, is she?
And a bunch of other. Yeah, she's a really good actress, actually.
Her name is never on screen in this.
No,
which is interesting.
Hold on, I'll get her. Let's shout her out now. I'm gonna get her up here. I'm pretty sure that's Nora Mao.
Yeah, Nora Mao. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, the film that kicked off this new wave of kung fu movies that Fist of Fury is riding on and expanding is Come Drink With Me, which is a female lead. That's the first film, 1966. Basically, the Shaw Brothers' first big kung fu hit. Starring Cheng Pei, who you would know as the villain in Crouching Tiger.
Okay. Yep.
And yeah, so it's just a super normal thing. Not always the lead, usually the leads are the dudes, to be fair, but sure. Having women running around punching the crap out of guys in Chinese films is pretty common.
It wasn't unusual, yeah.
No.
Yeah. Let's get down to the plot anyway then. So the film kind of starts with this scroll that it tells you about the death of the Huao Yunjia or something like that. I'm not going to be able to pronounce that correctly.
The guy's name. Yeah, we're going to butcher loads of names there.
Yeah. Who he's a real martial art teacher. He's a myth. He's kind of into kind of folklore mythicism. In reality, he died very normally, But some reason there's always been a kind of question about his death, and this.
Well, it's a lot like Bruce Lee, isn't it?
Yeah, not like Bruce Lee.
In fact, there's a line, I took note of it, and I put a sad face next to it. Hold on. Very early on in the movie, right after what you're about to set up, Bruce Lee's convinced that a healthy person can't die randomly.
Yes.
And I'm sitting there, I'm like, this is breaking my heart watching this, honestly.
What's the line? He goes like, a healthy man can't die of ulcers or pneumonia. No. I'm like, what? Bruce?
Yeah, pretty sad. But that guy probably died for no reason at all, but because he was the real character, the real person.
Yeah.
He did found that school in 1910. Its school is still going. If you want to see that guy get mythologized, you can watch Jet Li's Fearless.
Yes,
which is an excellent film, and is ridiculous. Like, the portrayal of this character is absurd.
Yeah.
But it's a super fun film. And then he just died, randomly. And because he was such kind of a beloved figure in the community for founding this school and promoting martial arts in Shanghai, and Shanghai was under this kind of imperial occupation it's
the same thing. He was using traditional martial arts, and he was known to beat kind of foreign fighters again.
Yeah, that probably, that did happen. For sure.
Yeah, it did happen totally, but I think his death, people were like, well, that must be a plot against him.
Right,
he was
exactly.
So strong, they were trying to make him look weak again or something.
Which is, again, some people think Bruce Lee died from some triad garbage, which is ridiculous. Yeah. the same thing again, where it's just like, you can't believe someone who's that physically impressive could have died from some just nonsense. But obviously, we know that can happen.
And so Bruce Lee turns up to his school. He's come for the funeral, but he's late. And the funeral procession's already left.
Where was he? I missed that.
That's what I was wondering.
He's in a nice
suit. You look like a sailor.
No, his outfit's amazing. I love it. It's iconic.
He's
but awesome. I meant where. So the character Bruce Lee's playing is fictional, 100%.
Yeah.
But where was that character supposed to be prior to the funeral? Was he off schooling somewhere?
I wonder if he was meant to be in the war or something, because it's
I didn't catch that.
World War II, but it never tells you. He's
just It's set in 1910, man.
Oh, 1910. Okay, sorry. I don't know what World War II.
Well, I mean, there's phones and cars, I guess, and stuff. So I guess
there's phones.
Yeah.
Is there phones? Hold on.
Yeah.
The real guy died.
There's a whole part of it where
there is. I love the phone bit. There's phones in 19 whatever. It's not meant to be World War II, for sure. The setting of this film.
I'd say 20s, 30s, maybe then.
Yeah, maybe 20s. But the real guy died in 1910, so that's when the inciting incident of this film happened in real life. I guess they could have been playing fast and loose with the truth a little bit. I don't know.
I guess so. The Japanese occupation of Shanghai is a lot later than 1910. That's why.
Yeah. Well, this is definitely not the Japanese occupation, actually. And I was confused about that too. No, I looked into this.
Like just a small sector that they were kind of like a little mob group that were trying to kind of take over areas.
It's a complicated time in history, which I'm not going to pretend I know what the hell I'm talking about at all. But I did look it up because I was confused because I had the same thought in my head, in my memory. It was World War II because of the Japanese occupation.
That's what I'm doing.
I thought 100% the same thing, and I'm watching the film, and they start saying words. Oh God, I can't remember anymore. I think I wrote that down too. Like sections of the town are like this, that, and the other thing. The British are a big presence, even in the film, more so than like the authority is Chinese and British people, and the Japanese seem to be like pushing in. So it seems like Shanghai is almost like a city-state at this point in history, and it's being kind of carved up by different imperial powers.
Colonialism,
so that's why you got the British Empire there, you got American business people there, you got Japanese Empire encroaching in, which leads to, in real life, the occupation around World War II. But I'm pretty sure this is set in the lead up to that.
Yeah, okay. I'll go with that.
Either way, Shanghai is getting screwed by foreign powers.
Yes, which is the kind of drama in this, really, isn't it, at the end of the day. I found it in the funeral scene when he finally makes it there, because he borrows the umbrella and runs through the rain. The funeral band are very European, and they're playing "Abide with Me" as well, which I thought was really bizarre as at a Chinese funeral. Which I guess,
it was Shanghai has been an international city for a long time.
Yeah. So I guess it was just that was the filmmaker showing that's what Shanghai was like at the time. There was this mix of cultures and music and kind of soundscapes and stuff.
But my note was, are rain funerals already a cliche in 1972? Because it's legitimately one of my least favorite cliches in the history of cinema. Is funerals in the rain. I hate it.
I love the sound the casket makes. It's like a proper metal thud. They're like plonking it, like the over-the-top sound effects.
But I have a feeling that in 1972, I assume there hadn't been a million funerals in the rain in movies already.
I don't want to take that bet.
I'm not sure. I'm not sure either way.
Yeah,
it looks great in this movie.
A lot of the 40s could have done that.
Maybe. I can't think of anything off the top of my head. But like once you get into particularly American films in the 90s and afterwards, it's just, every time someone dies, it's raining, and it drives me insane.
Yes. Well, it's the screen crying, Brandon. Don't you know?
I don't care. It works one time and then stop. I get it. Quick cultural note. I'm sure most people know this, but white is the color of mourning in China.
It is, yeah.
Yeah, so that's why Bruce Lee's all in white.
I went to a funeral in Thailand and had to wear all white. It was
there you go.
Interesting.
I love the opening titles.
They're great.
The titles are fantastic. I got that. That's big capitals I've written here. Like they got me so hyped to watch the film.
This is pretty common of the time period, both for Golden Harvest and Shaw Brothers. The title sequences are great. So this year also had Five Fingers of Death, which you talked about, which has an awesome score and opening titles, if I remember correctly. It's just a great era for title design generally.
But even films as recent as like Scott Pilgrim kind of emulate that kind of style, even though it's in a more kind of punk rocky kind of vibe. The way it's animated and stuff is very similar to how.
Good point.
And the colours they use and stuff like that, I thought was quite cool.
I didn't catch that, but that's spot on.
That's cool. So he's very sad at the funeral. He goes back. They're still very sad, and they're all sad about how this guy died. They're trying to tell Bruce it's normal. People die, but he's convinced it's a plot against him.
Yeah. Oh, you guys, you saw in this first scene right off the bat, you get one of the classic cliches of kung fu movies, generally, which is the main character shouting "Sifu" really sadly and loudly. So, which means teacher. Yeah, Sifu.
Yeah, absolutely.
Every time, every film, it has to be in there. And Bruce Lee.
Teachers.
Yeah. The picture they're using is the real guy in the film, like the picture of on the shrine in this film. That's the real picture of the guy as well.
Oh, I didn't know that. That's cool.
Yeah. As far as
so they're kind of just having their little wake, aren't they, in their kind of school, and the new teacher's taking over, and that's when the kind of villains come to visit. So you got this great smarmy kind of Chinese bureaucrat.
Brilliant, isn't he?
He's brilliant.
He's wonderful, isn't he? Like
this industry is also great for like random guy faces.
Sure.
You know what I mean? Just like bit actors who come in and just own the screen with this ridiculous character. Another pretty common element of the genre that was super fun.
Every villain has bad teeth and bad hair. I think that's
damn right.
The tropes. Like the one.
That's how you know. That's how you know somebody's evil. How else would you know?
It's like the two guys that are with him. One guy's got this insane bob, and the other one looks like a werewolf with this like mane.
That kind of ginger mane wig he has.
Yeah,
it's beautiful. It's beautiful. We can all only hope to look this.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And he's backed up by Japanese people. So he's a Chinese local, but he's backed up by evil Japanese people. And
he's their interpreter, I believe.
Yeah, and he's benefiting from that kind of international money, I'm guessing.
Yeah. He's a collaborator.
They come to insult their funeral for no real reason. It's quite rude, frankly.
That's a really good point, actually. The whole inciting incident, like they just didn't have to do that, did they?
They didn't have to turn up. It was fine. This guy died. And they have a sign that says "Sick Man of East Asia" to insult the kind of dead guy. And we've talked about this really briefly, but just to make it clear, that was a phrase that the West particularly were using about China. It's a phrase that predates China. I think like the Ottoman Empire used to call the sick man of Europe and stuff like that. And it's just a kind of political phrase about a country that's kind of suffering kind of economic downturn.
Right. It's like an empire in decline, isn't it?
Yeah, empire in decline. China took this to absolute heart, especially during this time period and the wars before the revolution. And it was a big driving force for them to become a strong nation and stuff. So having all this in this film would absolutely sing to people in the 70s in China. Would absolutely be like they would understand what all this meant and what all this was saying, really. And especially coming from the Japanese as well.
It seems pretty straightforward.
This. Yeah.
The film doesn't like these characters at all right off the bat.
Right off the bat. They give him a sign and he's not happy about this sign, and I love this scene when he's just like, Bruce is livid.
He's so great right away, isn't he?
Yeah. We
haven't talked about how much he just owns the screen the second he turns up.
He just doesn't say anything either, that whole scene, I don't think.
He just obliterates the celluloid from frame one. Like, the second he's there, it's just everyone else is melting around him.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
Was it this scene that's got the awesome guitar drop, or is it the one after? It's kind of got this like guitar like thing that crops up, I think, every time you see Bruce Lee. It's like
I can't remember, but I do have written here that the score is completely iconic, and I had forgotten how great it was.
Yeah, the score is wonderful.
There's a bit later on in the film, we'll get to it, but it's got like one of those like wooden kind of, which you kind of like stroke a stick along and it kind of makes a croaking sound.
Oh yeah.
Mm-hmm. And it sounds like it's burping the whole way through the fight.
It's awesome.
Anyway.
So to kind of get back on the kind of smarmy people, he decides to make a visit to their, is it Bushido they're doing? Is that right?
That's what they call it, but it looks like they're doing judo to me.
Okay.
It's a little bit of a mishmash of Japanese stuff. I'm not. They called it Bushido in the film, but
they're clearly making them look shit, because what they're doing is just like little throws and stuff. Like,
yeah. Bruce is not impressed.
This fight scene is one of the best things I've ever seen.
Oh, it's
so this right here is this scene in particular, like, is the scene that launched 1 million ships, basically off the.
Yeah,
I was laughing so hard during this scene, but not in oh, this is so funny, but just in like pure joy. It was so amazing.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
Like,
the second it cuts,
and spins them round and throws them. It was amazing.
I'm pretty sure Bruce didn't like that bit, actually.
Oh, I thought it was hilarious.
So I think he never worked with Lo Wei again after this.
No.
And I think there was like a competition between the two of them. Bruce Lee wanted to keep it more real, more raw, more street fighty, and Lo Wei was an old school kind of guy and kept trying to make it more silly. And so that kind of a stunt is the kind of thing that I get the impression.
Well, that's interesting, because Lo Wei becomes the early director for Jackie Chan as well.
Right, and he screwed it up completely.
Yeah, so...
Because he was totally wrong for it. But they bashed heads a little bit about that just because they had different kind of philosophies.
But I think that way you kind of get a nice blend then of the two.
A little bit, yeah. I see both. I like both kinds of movies, personally. Mm-hmm. So I can see both points.
But I don't think this goes overly silly.
No, it never... Bruce Lee was... The Big Boss had been a massive hit.
Yeah.
So Bruce Lee had not total control, but quite a bit.
Bit of clout,
and then this was even a bigger hit again. So after this point, he had total control, essentially.
Well, I know that he clashed quite much more with Lo Wei on Big Boss. So when it came to this, he had much more of a say about how he shot and stuff.
Okay, I wasn't sure about that.
But then the next film he directs himself. So
yeah,
like, and he's away then.
And directs very well. I rewatched a few scenes from Way of the Dragon today, just to remind myself of how the action scenes were maybe different or compared. Sure. And it's really great. Directed super duper well.
Way of the Dragon's got a bit more comedy in it, though. This doesn't really have comedy in it at all. Is Way of the Dragon?
Yeah, I think it's interesting. Bruce Lee never 100% knew, in that year and a half that he was making feature films.
Yeah, sure.
Never figured out exactly what he wanted his tone to be, because I think he seems like, if you've read interviews and books and stuff, he seems like kind of a conflicted guy in an interesting way, in terms of his stardom and how much maybe violence he should or shouldn't be putting on screen.
Okay.
And does he want to be funny? Does he want to be violent? Does he want to be sexy? Does he want to be all of those at the same time? He's not totally sure, which is actually compelling in its own way.
It is compelling in its own way, because he masters all of them.
He does, but it does lead to like certain tonal shifts that feel a little bit awkward here and there in these early films. But you have to remember, he only made these are his first 4 movies.
Yeah.
Jackie Chan's first 4 movies are horrible.
Actually, I might as well say, because Jackie Chan shows up in this, but
we'll get to that at the end, obviously. I'll explain it in great detail.
I think what's really interesting after this is because this has a number of sequels and that does star Jackie Chan as this character still.
That's one of those early films that's garbage.
Yeah. And even more interesting, we might as well say it now, that I found fascinating, is after Bruce Lee dies, there becomes an absolute market for fake Bruce Lees.
Yeah, Bruce PlayStation, baby.
And there's a guy called Bruce Lee, is it just L.I.?
He's awful.
Who makes these sequels as well to this film, playing the same character and stuff.
Very silly.
It becomes a whole thing. I can't remember what people call it now, Bruceification or whatever.
Bruceploitation is the term.
Bruceploitation, yeah. And
wasn't there a TV show of this as well with Donnie Yen or something? Or
I believe so, yeah.
Probably.
Well, this film's been remade very well a few times, but we can get to that at a later date. But
But let's talk about this fight scene, like.
Oh yeah, okay. So sorry, this fight scene, this particular fight scene, which, as we said, had been redone in a million films, including Ip Man, the first one.
Yes, absolutely.
But this was the fight scene where, in the Big Boss, is really good and a lot of fun, but it's pretty rough around the edges, and the action never lines up. It's never Bruce Lee at his Bruce Lee-ishness. It's like he's never himself. And in this one, the second the scene starts, you're like, now it's Bruce Lee.
Yeah. Now it's that kind of the hard hitting, the close quarters, the kind of 3 kicks, because he was insulted for those 3 kicks, wasn't he, by the Chinese?
Apparently, I never really understood. This goes into those weird, bizarre myths where you're like, really? Yeah. That doesn't make any sense.
It doesn't make any sense. Why would they object that? But yeah.
I don't know.
But he walks right into this dojo. It's him against the entire class and their kind of teacher as well. And he basically says to them, is it going to be 1-on-1 or all of you against me? And they pick all of them against him, and he kicks all their asses. I loved how, when they got him circling him, they're all kind of they're weak, they're kind of clawing, a bit kind of loose-backed. They're kind of lower than him, and he's just standing in the middle as this kind of pillar in the center of these guys, so tall and so just strong and so stoic, and he looks. This is the kind of scene.
He does, yeah, and he acts like it too, doesn't he? But this is the kind of scene that Western audiences quite rightly often make fun of why. Or how is it possible all these people could lose to one guy?
Sure.
And usually they're right. Usually that is silly. But in this particular case, the Bruce Lee makes it look like, of course he could kill all those dudes.
Yeah, totally. How would they ever think they were going to win?
He pulls those nunchucks out and just starts twatting them on the head, and circling around the floor and then whacking them in the ankles and stuff. It's amazing.
I know that this is the first time he has nunchucks on screen.
Yeah.
I read somewhere that it's the first time nunchucks are ever on screen, but I don't believe that.
I mean, honestly, that could be true.
It could be true, yeah.
Well, they were banned in the UK, weren't they, on films and TV? They were
because of Bruce Lee, basically.
And they were classed as an exotic weapon. So, in Ninja Turtles, they couldn't show the nunchucks, so they're always cut out and stuff like that.
This is a small point, but it sort of gets to the heart of why Bruce Lee was... One of the reasons he was really interesting was that one of the reasons it might have been the first nunchucks on screen was that's a Japanese weapon that you use in Japanese martial arts, and Chinese people don't do that sort of thing. And you can't. I don't know. You have to stay true to your thing. And Bruce Lee's philosophy of martial arts, generally, way before he made any of these films, was you don't have to be true to any one style or place or whatever. Okay. And he was quite open about that. That was his whole philosophy of life. He was teaching that to celebrities in Los Angeles before he made any films. So the fact that his second big hit film was all about promoting Chinese martial arts by doing not at all Chinese martial arts, really, is pretty amazing, actually.
Did he come in with the nunchucks? Were they in his pocket, in his...
No,
I think they...
I was going to say, did he get them there?
From them, I think.
Yeah.
I'm not sure what he did.
But I think as they can be seen as a Japanese weapon, you got this scene of this Chinese man coming into a Japanese kind of martial arts school, picking up their weapon and beating the shit out of them with it better than any of they can use it. And then the master then takes him on one by one.
It's a mistake, isn't it?
And you just think, why are you bothering? Because he looks so kind of bloated and red faced and weak compared to Bruce, and you're like,
he gives it a good try. He
does.
He was actually that same actor was in one of the other scenes I watched from a movie called I forgot it already. Anyway, he was good in that too. The boxer from something.
As soon as Bruce Lee smashes the paper scroll thing.
Yes.
As soon as he smashed that, I was like, he's going to make them eat it, and I was like, and then he makes them eat, and I was like, yes.
That bit is incredible. That is truly iconic.
Next time it's the glass.
Next time it's glass.
Yeah.
How cool do you have to be to say that?
And then we got that wee Chinese art sick men, and he's finished. He beat the shit out of a ton of people.
I like the admin guy who's just sitting in his office doing and he comes out.
What else did I write about that scene? Because this is a really, really pivotal scene in kind of the evolution of the genre. Let's see. Okay, it's already on the second page.
But I like it when when the interpreter comes back and you just see Bruce Lee walking out of the building and he's still just beating people up as he's walking out.
Oh yeah,
yes.
That's really.
And then he
funny.
goes and hides the interpreter, doesn't he? Like around
That topless thing as well of Bruce Lee. Like that's the first time you see him topless in this, and I picture Bruce Lee as topless. Like that's him. Like just in like that's when someone draws Bruce Lee. That's kind of how you draw him.
the high-waisted pants. And
Man. He likes to look good on screen. It's important to him.
He's a good-looking guy. Why not?
Why wouldn't you? Yeah, if I was ripped, I'd never have a shirt on in my life.
No, exactly. Well, this is why this film made 100 million in 1972, like, which is equivalent today of like I don't know 600 million or something. It's like insanity. And bear in mind it was made for 100k and it made 100 million. Like,
that's a lot. It occurred to me that the shot of him walking at the start of this actually. The shot of him walking back in with a sign reminded me a ton of Errol Flynn walking in with the deer in The Adventures of Robin Hood. Have you seen that?
Yeah.
So in the Adventures of Robin Hood, the first scene where Errol Flynn gets to be a badass in a similar kind of swaggering way, he walks into, I guess it's the sheriff or whoever. He kicks the door in, has a deer a dead deer on his back, walks in front of everyone and just chucks it down on the table. And this had that same energy of I'm just walking into the enemy's place like I own it.
I'm going straight in, and they're going to see me. Yeah. We'll skip along anyway. So he kind of at this point you're introduced to the villain of the whole thing with the amazing tash.
Oh yeah, beautiful. Point. There's at least two amazing mustaches in this film.
There's a Hitler mustache as well, which I thought was interesting.
Who had the Hitler stash?
The admin guy who takes him around when he's the phone operator.
You know what? I was so enjoying the phone bit, I didn't even notice the Hitler stash.
You didn't even notice the phone?
I forgot that was there too.
So they threaten the kind of the Chinese school to say if they don't hang over Chen, Bruce Lee, that they're going to keep smashing up all the schools and keep killing.
This is the whole plot of the film, isn't it? It just goes back and forth between the two schools.
Yeah. At this point, Bruce Lee's walking out in town and he tries to go into a park. I think we spoke about this already.
Yes.
And he's not allowed in because he's Chinese. There's a sign that says no Chinese or dogs. And some Japanese people walk in, don't they? And they insult him.
He punches a dude again.
And he decides to kick their ass.
It's just a mistake, isn't it? If you're to try and insult Bruce Lee, I just don't do it.
Like, why would you? If you've seen him, he's like the angriest kind of guy.
He's angry, but he is really small. So if his shirt is on, you don't know.
Yeah, you just have to look at his eyes, and you're like, oof, no.
Yeah, I don't want to. He's too crazy. I don't want to deal with that.
I love how when he's fighting, he sounds like we all know the sounds that he makes.
Yeah,
but like when he goes for the attack, he sounds like a tiger, like ferociously gonna like fucking tear your face apart.
He's more like a cat, like a little cat, because it's high pitched, isn't it? I love that he's not afraid to make ridiculous high pitched noises that a lot of people would call not very masculine.
I don't know. I'd shit myself if someone came up to
same, of course. But like, he's just he's unafraid. You feel like he's unafraid to be himself.
Would the martial arts scenes would be weird if they didn't have them in. Weren't punctuated with those kind of sound effects and that scream.
I mean, I hate it when I hate any film that tries to put in Bruce Lee style sound effects ever. It drives me insane. Because all the vocal stylings.
Yeah, isn't it? That's part of him.
It's unique to him.
Yeah.
No one else should be trying to do that.
What does Jackie Chan do when he fights? I'm trying to think. What kind of does he do?
He doesn't have very iconic sounds, I wouldn't say.
It's more about the close-ups, isn't it? His expressions and stuff like that. He's always a bit kind of like overwhelmed.
Bemused, yeah.
He's just a completely different performer. They're just apples and oranges. There's no point in trying to compare them, which was the problem with Jackie's early films.
Yeah, because they were just trying to make him into Bruce Lee.
Which is ridiculous.
Yeah,
if you're an amazing, accomplished martial artist, that's what they're looking for the next Bruce Lee. So they're just they're filling that gap, aren't they? And then
they had this superstar, and it went away in 3 years or something. So they were desperate to try and fill that in.
Yeah, but I think what we've all learned in how many years is it since 1971? No, a lot.
50.
There is no other Bruce Lee.
No.
It's just I love a lot of actors in this scene. All due respect to your Donnie Yens and whatnot, but there's just nobody like this at all.
Then, okay, so after this, this is when he finds out that he was poisoned because he sees the two assassins in the kitchen.
Yes, which I wrote down. Very convenient that they discuss their actions like this.
They discuss everything in minute
for no reason in extreme detail.
Yeah. I loved it. When they were like,
it was really funny.
You know how we killed that guy before by doing this? Shall we keep doing it this way, or do you want to do other ways to kill people? You know how it was us two here poisoning the biscuits to kill that guy? Like...
Do you know how it was us two and we dealt with this other guy named this? He's not here right now and we don't need to bring up for any reason.
I fucking adored it.
Yeah.
Hang on, haven't we missed the whole fight sequence when they ambush the... Or is that after this?
I can't remember, but there is one or two fight scenes where Bruce Lee's not in.
That's when all the girls that's when the girls get involved in the fight.
This is an interesting contrast because those scenes without him in it are more kind of conventional of the time period and they're just not very exciting.
Yeah, that's true.
Really.
Yeah.
I mean, and those are some good actors in there that have been in some other films, and the Low Ways made loads of films, so they know what they're doing, but it's just kind of indicative of how he changed the game, that those other more kind of normal quote-unquote fight scenes from the time period look ridiculous next to the one we just talked about in the dojo.
Yeah.
Because I have a feeling that one's first, then it's this scene when he punches those guys to death.
I think you're right, actually. So we're talking about the guys in the kitchen.
Yeah.
Okay, this has one of my all-time favorite details, literally in all of cinema.
Okay.
In fact. And this haunted me from when I was a teenager, because I've never understood it. The zoom into the guy's nipple.
Right. Right.
Yeah, and which somehow proves he's Japanese.
I think...
It must be a thing.
I think it's a zoom to the thing he's wearing on his waist.
No, it's his nipples, isn't it?
I know it is,
it's his
but
waist thing.
I think it's indicated because he's wearing that thing on his waist. That's something Japanese
that makes
people would
more
wear.
sense.
Yeah.
I just assumed, when I was a teenager, I was like, well, I guess Japanese guys have different nipples than Chinese guys, I guess.
I spent
I don't know.
too long thinking of why that happened. I have to say today.
It haunted me. I must have seen, like I said, I saw this when I was like 15, so I'm an idiot. I'm just a dumb kid. And I'm sitting there going, what the hell is this about? I don't understand. I thought about it for years.
It felt like basically the zoom went too far to me. Like they were meant to zoom in by that, like so many, and they doubled it accidentally. And they just ended up at his nipple.
The scene before this is when they have that big fight and they think Bruce Lee comes back. And they're all saying it's Bruce Lee's fault, it's Bruce Lee's fault. And then the girl goes to him, no one's blaming you. I'm like, no, that's exactly what they're doing. But I love the fact you find out that it was a poison custard cream pretty much that killed...
Really? I missed that.
It was
it's definitely biscuits. I don't think they're custard creams, but they're
That's what I put in my notes.
Okay. So he eats custard creams and Japanese nipples are different. These are the things that we've learned in this scene.
And he kills the Japanese guy with a single punch.
That was amazing.
Single hard
punch. When it goes into slow motion like that?
Yeah.
Oh, that's incredible.
I can't work out if it was real slow-mo, if they were just acting slow-mo.
No, that was slow motion for sure.
It's got to be just slow motion.
Yeah, his hair was moving in slow motion.
I can't remember.
Yeah, no, for sure. That shot's incredible. It looks amazing. The framing of that's amazing. The way it makes the punch look so powerful.
Yeah,
like
it looks like
where they put the camera on the slow motion and everything.
Yeah, and then after this, he decides to string them up on the lamppost to kind of tell everyone that he killed these people. I'd love to know how he got them up on that lamppost.
It seems unnecessary again, really.
He's Bruce Lee. You don't need any of it. It's like Batman. You just say he's Batman and that's
They're
it.
so
high.
Bruce
Lee.
That's a good point.
Them up there.
Isn't this a common thing in the Hannibal TV show as well, where people do they just have impossibly bizarre...
Yeah,
I don't know. I haven't seen it, but I've just heard that's
not seen.
Overly kind of produced death scenes. Yeah, that's a massive...
Yeah, but he strings up people from the lamppost. It feels like 90 times by the time you get to the end of the movie.
Yeah, that's his move now. He's become basically this serial killer of kind of people in this town.
He's a boogeyman, isn't he?
Yeah. He is a boogeyman because he lives out in the graveyard with his scary barbecue food, which I don't know why he's eating.
He's a rabbit.
He's like a shapeshifter, or like how 1 minute he's the old man with the wig.
This is a great read, actually, honestly. I'm not kidding. This is actually a great read of this film.
I didn't know that a lot of this film would be him in costumes.
Right.
I was so happy.
Well, that's
Everyone
like
forgets that.
Terminator. He's like the T-1000. He can disguise himself as whoever he wants.
I love how we're skipping ahead a little bit, but I love the old man costume.
Yes.
And I kept thinking, like, if this is in like 1915 or whatever, where the hell did he find this fake beard?
That's what I wrote. I love how like he goes basically from being the rickshaw guy, and that his costume's just a hat. And I was like, well, that's fine. He just robbed a costume, like a rickshaw hat.
Get more elaborate.
And the next sign, it cuts to him, and he's got this fake wig and fake mustache on.
And they're really good, too. Like, they're really high quality as well.
Yeah.
So anyway, he's in the graveyard now. He's hiding in the graveyard, isn't he?
Yes.
And he's eating rabbits or hunting for...
As you do.
As you do. Living in the graveyard.
And
I love how she's like, I thought you'd be here. Why?
Well, I assumed this must be his master's grave, right?
It's got to be, hasn't it? Yeah.
I don't think they say that, do they? I'm not sure.
I don't think they say it, but it's got.
You might see it on the grave stuff because there's a few wide shots where you see a grave, so maybe it says it on.
Maybe
there.
It says it.
It seems weird that no one else would think to look there if that's what it is.
My favourite thing is how he woos this girl in this scene. Is he pretty much says, "You're my second favourite person." That's how he woos her.
Well, yeah.
The implication was that they had wooed previously.
Yeah, but this
to the starting events of the film.
Well, this is when they proper get it on in terms of the film, though, isn't it? And it's like that's how he's. You're my second favorite person. Like,
but again, it's like movie star charisma. He could say anything and get the girl.
True.
It doesn't matter what he says.
Yeah, I can barely remember what he says there. It's Bruce Lee.
Yeah, exactly right. He's too dreamy. You get caught up in it.
Yeah, so this is when she's telling about her dreams that, you'll teach Kung Fu all day and I'll do the housework and pick up the kids from school.
The classic calm before the storm kind of scene, isn't it?
Yeah.
Gotta have it in there. I think
then
it must be after this that he gets driven to more murder. He turns into a murder bot after they come back and wreck the school again. So when they when the Japanese group comes back in force, and it must be around this point in the film, I can't remember, wrecks the shrine to the master.
Okay, yeah.
That's when it's all bets are off. If you do that, that's beyond the pale in these films. You can't do that.
Yeah, it's a slow ramp up, isn't it? Yeah. Until
there's a wicked bit with Bruce Lee when he finds out that the interpreter is to do with the master's death, and it's like, well, duh. And it's like, they've got this ticking clock that's like as he's figuring it out. And then it stops and he's like, oh!
The cog's turning in his head, like, hang on.
I tell you who my favourite character, though, who shows up after this, and I think it's after they've attacked the dojo area. It's the Chinese Columbo guy.
Oh, I like him, the administrator guy.
Oh, the cops.
Yeah, with his hat.
Yeah, they were really good. Yeah, that's a classic combo in this era, is like the Western hat and the Chinese jacket.
Yeah, because he'll be a Chinese man working for the British, I assume.
It's unclear. He's just part of the Shanghai PD or whatever it is. And he's got his cool hat and his cool coat. And he's always like, well, we'll see. Just some naughty kids, I guess. And killing each other at will.
And he's getting pressured by the Japanese kind of...
To stop all the murders. Yeah, it's actually not that unreasonable of a request.
No, it isn't. I kind of thought he's literally going around murdering people. So maybe the police have to get on this. You can't just let that happen.
There's a bad subtitle in my copy. We haven't talked about this.
Well, I'm assuming we've all got the same version, didn't we?
Yeah, and it said, "Why did you dill Sifu?" With
I saw that.
So good. That is brilliant.
Shaolin Soccer had some good bad subs as well, if I remember.
Well, those might have been on purpose at that point.
Oh God! If those subs were on purpose, that's the most genius thing.
I wouldn't. It would not put that past at all.
Kick the ball! Kick the ball!
Kick the ball!
It's a hallmark of the. Very quickly to the audience, us watching the film we're just going to watch it on Amazon Prime here in the UK, and it was the dubbed version.
Yeah.
And we all said we're not having that.
Subs or dubs.
Again, particularly in this case, so we had to go find a sub version, and of course there's 8 million different versions of that. I have no idea which one we were watching.
No.
But it had all types of weird subtitles in there, and that's even though we're in 2020, somehow the experience is the same as being in 1995.
Yeah.
I don't understand.
I can't believe I can't just go to Amazon and watch the original language version.
There must be a good. I feel like there has to be a good, a properly good Blu-ray by now.
There's a definitive Blu-ray edition now, I think, that you can get. For sure.
But does it still have bad subs on it?
I don't know. I think it's got various different subs, like original subs, new subs, dubs. It's kind of got got it all.
But it was crazy that even now that it's... I mean, Bruce Lee released 4 films, and even now it's hard to find them in original language.
Yeah, and it's not like they're unknown or anything. It's just massively popular.
Some of the most watched films ever, yeah.
Yeah. Very silly. Moving on.
The
Dill line was worth it, though.
We got...
like, is the joy of having the bad subtitles, like, is it worth losing that for a better experience? I don't know.
It definitely felt real to just have the nice bad subtitles in it. And the sound's a little off, though, because it's dubbed as well, even though it's the original language.
Yeah, that would be true, regardless.
But that's the same with a lot of the spaghetti westerns were all like that, weren't they?
Which the Italian and Chinese industries at the time didn't use sync sound because it was just too complicated. So they dubbed everything. I wanted to actually bring up the fact that the Sergio Leone reference was dead clear to me this time watching this.
Okay, go on.
Actually, the action, the way the action works in this film and the subsequent Bruce Lee movies reminded me so much of Sergio Leone, more than I had noticed previously.
I didn't think about that at all. So.
Well, it's the big difference between his contemporaries, as far as the action goes, is that it wasn't about long, drawn-out punch. This guy punches, then counterpunch, then block, then this.
It wasn't about back and forth. Yeah,
it's more like a Western shootout or samurai duel.
Repose themselves, then attack.
Yeah, it's like one attack and done.
Yeah,
and that was it. And that reminded me of Westerns and stuff like that. Which he
that.
loved. We know that Bruce Lee loved the Westerns and stuff.
He did. Totally.
Well, he came up with Kung Fu, didn't he? The original.
Yeah, exactly right. So when you think about that for a second, then you think about the rhythm of his action scenes as compared to the more elaborate Shaw Brothers scenes or later Jackie Chan and stuff like that. It's more like they have guns and they're just shooting each other once and then putting them back.
I'd say that's most evident in the fight with the Russian guy, definitely.
Yeah, exactly right, yeah.
Yeah, well, the Russian guy gets introduced in the plot now as well because this is the stripping scene for the Japanese.
It's amazing.
And the Russian's there for the first time, and who's a very odd-looking man, to be honest.
He's one of Bruce Lee's real-life students.
Yeah, he was, wasn't he? Yeah.
Yeah, because in the first film, in The Big Boss, they couldn't get anyone who was good enough. So Bruce said, I'll just bring in my own people because this is stupid.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
And then you got the Chinese guys there as well, the kind of bureaucrat, and they're taking the absolute piss out of him, and they treat him with absolute no respect, and he just kind of plays up to it. I thought that was
the telephone bit.
It's no,
not yet.
It's the rickshaw bit where he goes the bureaucrat leaves.
They make him walk out
rickshaw.
like a dog.
Yeah,
and then he leaves, and then it goes from night to day to night.
Oh, sorry, this is the weird Japanese scene that Bruce Lee's not in.
Yeah.
Well, he's outside, isn't he?
Yeah, he goes onto the rickshaw and he chucks him around with the rickshaw.
The way he picks that up.
We're all over the map. I feel like we're not explaining the narrative very clearly here.
Probably not.
Well, it's like you said. What did you say earlier? There is no plot, really. It's just a revenge.
No, basically, there's no plot. For the people listening at home, all three of them, there's it just basically goes back and forth between the two schools. The Japanese come over and break some stuff. Bruce Lee goes over in disguise usually to find some information, which he doesn't really need to do. He can just walk in and kill everybody at any point.
He doesn't.
It makes for some fun bits. Yeah. And it just does that over and over again until Bruce Lee decides, you know what? I'm just going to walk in and kill everybody.
Yeah, so the last few bits of the film, because we might as well skip through them, because he kills the rickshaw guy, they come back, he goes back as an old man, then they go back and they're yelling at the authorities to capture him and kill him, and then he goes back as a telephone mechanic.
He reminded me of the cable guy when he's up in the top.
Yes.
Yeah.
Lines, and he's got his glasses on.
I love this scene, honestly, and I always have. I love his physicality when he makes himself smaller and pathetic.
Yeah, he puts this slack-jawed
and he puts the glasses on, and I thought to myself, is this like a deliberate Superman Clark Kent reference?
I was thinking the same thing, yeah.
I think it probably is, honestly.
He would have been very knowledgeable at that.
Would those glasses have come from the interpreter or something?
Oh, yeah, probably, actually.
Oh, maybe. Yeah, maybe. Didn't
occur to me. Here's the thing. They say it here at this point in the film. They're talking about the international settlement area of Shanghai. It's in the dialogue somewhere, and I wrote it down because I was confused about the plot or the time period,
right?
Like we talked about, and I get the impression that it's almost like Berlin after World War II, where it's like this part's Britain and this part's Japanese controlling this part, and this part's China's controlling this bit, that kind of thing.
Right. Okay, that makes sense.
I'm not 100% sure. But
yeah,
that was the impression I got.
I'd say that the phone scene's a bit funny, but what I was really impressed by was the fact that it's actually really important to enjoy the rest of the film because it gives you all the kind of like geography that you need to not worry about them going forward.
That's a good point.
It shows you all the rooms they're going to be in. It shows you where they'll be able to fight from, and it shows you the bosses like a computer game because it shows you that they're going to have to go through this big Russian guy. They're going to have these are what the kind of mobs look like. They're dressed like this, and they're going to have to go through him. And then in this back corner is where the mob boss is, and he has to get through all this to get there. And because they take you through as him with the telephone and stuff like that, when it comes back, when he goes away and comes back again, you know all that. You know exactly where he's going, and you know exactly who he's fighting as well, which I thought was just really cool.
I like that scene though, with the guys like bending the metal.
Yeah,
it's really funny. I got the impression. I think the nails were real.
Yeah,
and
I think so.
I'm pretty sure the bars were steel bars were fake.
Yeah, they must.
But
be.
I watched it. Pretty closely, and it felt like the nails through the board was a real gag.
Well, but the way they film it though, it's like it's side on, so it could have had a piece of foam inside that.
Oh, maybe
wood.
I don't know.
Then it cuts to a piece of wood with it in, and it looks like a bigger piece of wood. But I don't.
I can imagine it being a kind of one of those martial arts like stage things to punch nails in with your hands.
I've definitely seen people do that for real.
I can't imagine you do it for a film though, where you might have to do several takes, and then by that point your hand would probably be caning after that. I reckon it was a practical effect. But
either way, who cares?
It was cool.
Either way, he probably
as Bruce Lee says. As Bruce Lee says in Enter the Dragon, boards don't hit back.
Yeah. He's like one of those motherfuckers that can rip phone books with their hand.
Yeah. Phone books don't hit back either.
That's true.
At this point, it occurred to me that the exteriors of the two schools, I think, are the same set.
Oh, are they?
Probably.
With the lamppost that he keeps hanging people on, looks really similar to the lamppost outside of the Japanese school.
That's
just switches
true.
Switches the lamppost to another side or something.
I think they just switched what the gate itself looked like,
right,
to the school, but the street looked pretty much the same. I don't know. I mean, it would have to be, frankly. Yeah. Really.
And then, but basically, towards the end, he goes away in his mechanic's costume. He hears them talking about Chen as well. He hears them talking about him as well, conveniently. And he goes away and comes back dressed as Bruce Lee to kill everybody.
Just kill them all, baby. Kill them all. Some amazing fight scenes. The one-on-one with the Russian guy's really great.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely great. I just love how, even the first bit, when he first gets in that first room and there's kind of 5 students there, and because they've all left to beat up the other school again,
right.
So it's more empty.
Not beat them up, to kill them.
Well, yeah.
Yes. Now it's a joint murder operation.
Yeah, it's all hell's breaking loose. And the fight scene here was so much more violent than the earlier one. Even though the earlier one was violent, but this one was so that there's no messing around. There was no toying with them. He was literally 1-2 punch. That was it. That's all he needed to do to take him down. And it felt like it ramped up to this stage. The fighting itself, not just everything else. And it's just, I don't know, great choreography, I guess, is what I'm saying. But
yeah, definitely. I love how he says, he gives them the option. You can go or I can kill you.
Oh, yeah, he does it several times, doesn't he? And then they just... Yeah. He's like, well, fuck you then.
I loved him just crushing the guy in the floor with his foot.
Yeah. Great stuff.
And then even the master comes back now, and he's even more violent. He's got this sword out, and he's actually kind of a threat now.
The way that Bruce Lee makes him impale himself is amazing.
That scene, it's an incredible bit. Unfortunately, the only knock, not the only knock, but one of the things you could say against this film is that nobody is an opponent to Bruce Lee at all until the last two guys. Yeah. And the last two guys are, at least a little bit. What I mean?
That's what I liked about the Russian guy, because his stick. You've seen him be able to bend the iron and seen him be able to push the nails in. And you know that Bruce Lee can't let himself get kind of captured by him. So Bruce Lee has to rely on his speed. He can't let himself get his arm grabbed, because that would be bad, because this guy's fucking big and strong. And
and they have that wicked bit of the superimposed Bruce Lee's with the hands. I love that.
Moving everywhere, yeah.
I've always loved that kind of effect where you kind of double up the image, or kind of do the trails. I love that.
Yeah, this is a great use of it in this bit.
But I wonder, in more modern films, if they were to do... Well, obviously they still make films like this. Would they kind of have, the Bruce Lee character lose at least once or something, just to give it some sort of... The character some sort of growth, or... Do you know what I mean? Or prove that the guy's going to fight later on in the film is a bit of a challenge, or...
Yeah, so Bruce Lee movies, he's essentially invincible. In all of his films, I don't think he ever really gets beat. But after him, you usually have the protagonist get beat by somebody. The Jackie Chan model early on, his early films were always like, he'd be a doofus kid, someone would kick his ass horribly, he'd go train. 36 Chambers of Shaolin is the same thing. You get beat early on, you go train, you come back and you kill everybody. That was like the basic plot structure when Bruce Lee's not on screen.
Yeah.
But when it's Bruce, get out of here. That's not happening.
Well, you kind of let it slide. You kind of don't want Bruce Lee to lose, though, do you? You just want him to just...
You feel if his career, like if he got to continue, he would probably have to expand that persona a bit.
Yeah.
But because it's only the 4 films and he's just so electrifying in them, whatever, it's fine.
Yeah. At the moment, they're just making Bruce Lee films, and Bruce Lee films look like this, you know?
Right, exactly. Yeah, there was no reason to have... His character didn't need to grow. He was born perfect.
Yeah. And when he kind of got... There's the threat that he will lose because of, like, the authorities chasing him.
Yes, well, actually, we just said all that. He does lose at the end.
Yeah.
Well, he gets...
He does.
Get there.
We just invalidated all of the things we just said completely.
He was owned by guns in the end.
Guns cannot beat Kung Fu is one of my favorite lines in, I think, Once Upon a Time in China.
Is that
one of those films? It's one of those Jet Li 90s movies that is a period piece set around the same time period. In a similar kind of British Empire or somebody else, I can't remember who. And one of Jet Li's friends gets shot, and he goes, "Kung Fu can't fight bullets," or whatever, and dies. It's a great bit.
We'll say because he fights he kind of fights the boss at this point, and it's brilliant. It's so brutal, you know, the sword, the wood he grabs off the ceiling, the flying kicks and stuff like that, and the blood as well. Really,
classic.
It's that flying kick he does right as his throat that lunges him all the way through the air into the courtyard.
And this is where Jackie Chan shows up, everybody. The stunt where the boss gets flung through the wall, that's Jackie Chan.
No way.
Yes.
No way. I didn't know.
100%. Now that is confirmed by multiple parties. I was a big enough Jackie Chan fan that I read his autobiography.
Yeah.
And he talks about that scene from his point of view. This was one of his big breakthroughs as a stunt performer, obviously.
Yeah.
Although he'd been in other stuff prior. It was a stunt that, like, he claims nobody else wanted to do it because it was such a long thing, but he's probably gassing himself up. But whatever, it's Jackie Chan.
Yeah, it's Jackie Chan.
So he does the thing. The wires pull him way the hell out there. He bashes his head on the ground in classic Jackie Chan style. Bruce Lee runs out to double check he's okay because it was such a big thing. Jackie Chan comes to him. He's like, did we get the shot? And Bruce is like, yeah, you did good. Well done. You know, it's a little bit like, who is it? Beethoven meeting Mozart, or the other way around.
Sure.
Right.
Sure.
Being like, this kid's going to be good, kind of thing. I think Ian Biao might be in there. One of the other lucky stars, Jackie Chan's co-stars, I think was also in there as a stunt performer.
Right.
But I'm not sure which bit. But I'm positive Jackie was. Him and Sammo Hung also turn up in Enter the Dragon as henchmen shortly.
Yeah.
I can't believe he does that stunt at the end.
It's amazing, isn't it? Because it's such a great stunt, and it's such a great little linkage between their two careers.
And there will always, like, if you ever have a montage of Bruce Lee, it'll be him doing that kick to the master's throat will be in this.
Right.
In that montage.
Right, for sure.
How did he kill the Russian guy again? I've forgotten now.
Was it a testicle punch?
Was it
throat? No, throat.
There was a guy who definitely got kicked in the dick or punched in the dick several times.
That's the thing Bruce Lee does all the time. I don't know why.
The 1-inch dick punch.
It is indeed. No, the Russian dude, after he does the superimposed hands shot, which is just such an amazing shot, I want to reiterate. He confuses him with his awesome speed and punches him a couple times, and then the Russian guy falls to his knees and he pulls his head back and just punches his throat so hard.
That's it. Yeah,
brutal stuff.
I like the kick he does to his face, and he completely cuts his face. It's top of his scalp over.
Yeah. Well, again,
that fight is essentially like a precursor to a similar one against Chuck Norris in Way of the Dragon.
Yeah, sure.
It's a pretty similar scene, but he gets to like kind of up his own game and do it again, and direct it himself that time. So if you're interested, also a good scene, similar stuff.
So did Chuck Norris play the bad white guy in that one then, or?
Yeah. I don't remember why at all. The plot in that one, to be frank, is even sillier than this one. And even less, I say this one's silly. The plot in this, it does have some stakes. It's simple, but the emotion is real and you kind of are sympathetic. to the characters, whereas I actually do not remember why everyone's fighting in Way of the Dragon at all. I could be wrong. It's been a while.
I'm trying to run my. I've never seen it, but I'm trying to work out if I know it at the top of my head. And I don't. I know Big Boss has got drugs.
He works at a
it,
restaurant.
But...
In Way of the Dragon, he works in a restaurant, and like I think in Italy, and I think the mob is trying to get protection money.
Oh, is that the one?
And
Okay.
I think it just spirals out of control from there, but it spirals way out of control. So I feel like there's got to be more to it.
There must be something else.
Yeah, like I don't remember what though.
I like it.
Anyway,
as soon as he kills the mob boss in this, the kind of you see that kind of vengeance lift from him, like almost.
Yeah, well, yeah. There's
like,
that euphoric moment, isn't there?
Yeah,
he's like,
and he's no longer like just out to kill everyone. He's like he's out of peace. He's done.
He's avenged his master.
He's made a crucial error at that point.
Yes.
Yeah, which I think is pretty important to Bruce Lee's like outlook and how he differed from people like Lo Wei. Apparently, he wanted there to be consequences. He wanted this movie's pretty dark.
Yeah.
It's a lot darker than his other films. And you get the impression that Bruce Lee wanted, he doesn't think it's okay to run around murdering people no matter what. I don't think. And he's not here to say, but you get the impression that like he gets martyred at the end.
Yeah.
And the character even says it, I'm going to pay for what I did.
Yes. Yeah.
Like he should,
Yeah. He's a man
which
of
wasn't
honor,
a common, and which wasn't frankly that common at the time. There's a few other films that do it, but usually a film like this ends at the moment you guys just said.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And you can imagine the film just ending at that point. He's won, everything's fine. Like,
right. And the movie would already be really good. The movie would have been fine.
I would never have thought, I've never had gone, where's the ending? Like,
and the consequence, to me, the last shot is iconic.
Yeah.
Is absolute fire. It's such a great still frame. And I wrote down, when did Butch Cassidy come out?
Oh, God.
Because I'm pretty sure it was after this.
God, is it after or is it before?
I'm pretty sure Butch Cassidy's later.
1969.
69, yeah, before.
No, okay, so Bruce Lee's ripping off Butch Cassidy hardcore.
Yeah, but you can tell he's a fan of cinema, like, do you know what I mean? Just of all cinema, and
for sure
would kind of want to put that into his films.
But
yeah, he had a lot of influences.
Because I quite like the kind of the reckoning of the Shire of this kind of bit of the film, because you get the kind of elements play out of the cop as well. Like
definitely.
He's like, look, I'm Chinese as well. I'm an honourable man, so I give you my word. This is how it will go. Like, and you get that kind of it's the Chinese are kind of standing up for each other at this point against the kind of the foreign elements, even though like the kind of foreign elements are ordering it to happen. It's quite
it's really complex. It's a complex note to end on, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. And so the ending, when he jumps at them to kick them with the bullets, like.
That's not how I interpreted it.
But like that's him martyring himself, right?
Yes, he's 100% dead. Yeah.
So what are all the sequels to this film?
I have no idea.
That's a good point, actually.
I mean,
there's so many sequels to this film.
I mean, I don't
Fury?
think. I think they're not sequels in the direct sense of the story continuing.
Okay.
Most of the time, I think they're kind of standalone or similar or what. I don't know. Who cares?
Because the next one is New Fist of Fury, which is Jackie Chan. So that probably is a new character then.
That was my impression, but legitimately I don't remember.
And then there's Fist of Fury 2, Fist of Fury 3, and then Fist of Legend. And
Fist of Legend's a remake.
That's true, yeah.
And is amazing, frankly.
That's the Jet Li one.
Yeah, so that's a great film.
Here's the plot to Fist of Fury 2 with Bruce Lee or whatever his name.
Okay, yeah.
So he goes to Shanghai to mourn his brother's death, who was killed at the hands of the Japanese. Chen Shan then avenges his brothers by killing the Japanese.
Okay, all right. So it's Chen Zhen's brother.
It's basically the same plot.
Okay. There's one line. Maybe was it the cop or who was it who says our inaction was a mistake?
Yes, that is so. Yeah, that is so.
Which
Chinese
felt
critical.
really powerful.
Yeah, totally. Like that's absolutely the criticism of like what China was in this time period as like the Chinese being in action against kind of the foreign powers, like stuff like opium addiction and stuff that come through the British Empire and stuff. They're blaming themselves for their inaction and not fighting against it. So it would have been a bit of a rally call for the kind of revolution stuff that would come.
That's definitely the vibe it was going. Or that's what it feels like anyway.
Definitely, I thought that was really significant as well as a line, which I think they might repeat a couple of times as well. Actually, just at the end. But yeah,
I can't remember, but the one really stuck out for me. My last note is quote, "Last image is 100% fire." That's the last thing I wrote. It doesn't really get, honestly, it doesn't get much better.
My last note was he's a hero and will kick guns in the face.
So I'm looking at the plot of the Jackie Chan New Fist of Fury.
Yeah.
And it looks like it's almost a prequel, maybe? I don't know.
That makes sense.
Yeah, he's meant to be...
Donnie Yen did a Legend of Chen Zhen movie, which was awful. In which he plays the same character fighting other people. I don't remember if it was a remake or what. I don't know. But the Jet Li one's wicked. It's the exact same movie, told a little bit, with a little bit more nuance. The direction's a little bit better, a little bit less rough around the edges. The characters play differently because it's Jet Li and not Bruce Lee. Some of the action scenes are, as we talked about, like the other characters are good, like Jet Li is, so it's not quite as one-sided. Not quite as one-sided and different kind of choreography. Would recommend that one as well.
I think I'll check it out. Actually, I think I will check it out.
Oh, you've never seen that?
No, I haven't.
Oh, it's absolutely amazing. Yeah, it's honestly probably as good as this film.
Right.
Yeah, in its own way.
Okay, so if you're both on Letterboxd, we're going to give it out 5. Is it 5? 5 on Letterboxd, sorry.
Letterboxd is 5. I gave it 4.5 last time I saw it, and 4.5 again this time.
Yeah, 4.5. To be honest, we'll go with that.
Yeah, same as.
I don't know what.
If it wasn't for Bruce Lee, it'd be 3. But
sure,
it's all.
It just shows how one person can completely like elevate a film.
I mean,
right.
You're watching this for Bruce Lee. That's why you're watching it. Like,
100%.
It delivers that. It's what you've turned it on for, and it delivers it in spades. And then sadly, he went on to make what? So after this, he made.
Who, Bruce Lee?
Yeah. So Way of the Dragon.
So I was looking at the speed at which people made movies in this industry at this time. So like we said, he made The Big Boss in 1971. In 1972, he made this and Way of the Dragon in the same year, which is ridiculous.
Insane.
And then made Enter the Dragon and started making Game of Death in 1973, which are also both amazing, and died right before Enter the Dragon came out.
Yeah, and then so Game of Death he only made like 40 minutes of it or 30 minutes of it or something.
Yeah, it's just the ending.
It's got
he made
a lot.
He wrote and directed and shot the last like 30 or 40 minutes of the film, but hadn't even written the first part yet.
So how does that film play out then? What have they done to that then? Or is it
I think that I haven't seen them, Brandon might be able to speak to it, but the 1978 one's meant to be quite bad, but then they recut it in the kind of 2000s or something, or the 90s, and it's meant to be much more.
I can't remember the whole history, but somebody repurposed the footage with a stand-in playing the other scene. Like
Hang on, this sounds strangely familiar with the the Lee family.
Sort of. But a little bit, I guess.
Okay,
but Bruce Lee had shot that footage, which is amazing footage, which we'll get to how you can see it later. But no one knew what to do with it. In 1978, somebody had the terrible idea of using the footage that was already shot and then like writing the first half, like the setup for the ending. So the first like 30 or 40 minutes with a stand-in actor who you can only see like in the dark and from behind, and all. It's just awful, like cheap garbage, and it doesn't work at all. And then somebody had the bright idea, I think in the 90s, to like remaster what Bruce Lee had done without any setup and just releasing it like on the DVD. It might have been on the DVD box set I had, honestly.
Okay.
Where you can just watch it as it was, as Bruce Lee shot and edited it. So you don't get any setup. You don't know what the story was. You're just watching it to see what he was up to,
Cool.
And it's incredible. It's honestly incredible. It's totally awesome.
That's him going through the pagoda to get to the top floor, isn't it?
Yeah, for sure.
And then what's Game of Death 2? So that like uses footage from earlier films then or something?
I have no idea.
No, Game of Death 2.
I assume that's just more Bruceploitation.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, so the industry after he died, because he was such a huge star for reasons, as we've said, you can't really put your finger on. The whole Hong Kong industry didn't know what to do with themselves for like 5 or 6 years and kept trying to repeat what he was rather than let other people be themselves.
Come through,
Yeah, and then once they figured that out, they were fine for a bit.
Oh, well, thanks for that. Like, I think we'll finish there, to be honest. Like, I don't know if there's any final thoughts from anyone, I guess. Like,
I feel like we've covered it pretty thoroughly.
Yeah.
No,
it was good.
It's
great.
good times.
How do you guys usually wrap this up?
We say goodbye and that's it.
That's it. You don't have like a concluding segment. You don't have prizes. You don't have to like talk about mattresses and kettles and delivery food services and shit. None of that. No. Stamps.
Do you have anything you want?
Do we get to sell stamps?
Do you have anything you want to promote or
me? Yeah. No.
Wow.
No, it's the COVID pandemic. I'm editing some stuff, but with Oliver here. But otherwise, nothing doing.
Yeah, we're currently in post-production of we don't know if it's yet going to be a short documentary or a feature length. We're still deciding that, but it's about our friends band Blackfish. But it's looking quite good. Like Brandon's done a lot of the editing so far, and it looks really good.
Looks good.
That's job. A plug. Look out for that.
Yeah.
That's a plug. Hey, look out for that in the year 2052.
Well, next week we're back with 1973, and we're doing Badlands.
Oh, wow.
Terrence Malick.
Have you guys not seen that?
Shush. I knew that was coming. You haven't seen it?
I've seen Days of Heaven.
Okay.
But I haven't seen Badlands. So
Badlands is brilliant. You're going to love this.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to it. And actually, the week after that, we'll see you again, Brandon, because you're back again.
Is it 2 weeks for Pelham?
Yeah, 2 weeks for Pelham.
Well, I can't wait for that.
Well, again, thank you very much for coming on, Brandon, and thank you to everyone who's listened. Don't forget, you can always add us on Twitter. We are at Adjust Your Track. That's a YR, not a your. We're also on Apple Podcasts. We're on YouTube. We're on Spotify. So please rate, review, and subscribe. That'd be great. We'd really appreciate it. And yeah, don't forget, if the picture's bad, always adjust your tracking.